chest, abdomen, and legs. Small contusions just above the trachea, on her right cheek, and to the right of her chin, and purple contusions on her left forearm, hand, and wrist. Other than evidence of injuries, which the coroner believed were consistent with running through trees and brush, she had no visible external injuries. It is also interesting to note that the autopsy showed that there were no internal injuries to her brain, so we can safely rule out there being some kind of hemorrhage or tumor being to blame for Natalie's strange behavior. While the autopsy did not determine the cause of death, Sheriff Jobe said, "They've ruled out anything criminal. It's just really, really weird. But we're still hoping to find out something more conclusive." Lee Roybal, officer in charge of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, also commented on the unusual nature of Natalie's death, saying, "It's the strangest thing you've ever seen." Although there could be no definitive answers as to why or how Natalie had died, the coroner was forced to conclude that she had ultimately died from a phenomenon known as excited delirium. She had absolutely no traces of narcotics or alcohol in her system when she died, and despite not being able to give a concrete conclusion that she had died of excited delirium, listed 6 main factors that had caused him to reach such a decision. The first and main point being that she had been found completely naked, having not been obviously pursued by anyone. There were also no internal injuries at all, so no obvious way of telling how she had died. There was also the complete lack of narcotics in her system, so there was no way a drug could be to blame for the erratic state she was in that evening. There was also the possibility that, given she was a recent arrival to a relatively high altitude from sea level Florida, that a lack of oxygen in her brain could be to blame for the delirium. On top of all this, there was an elevated amount of glucose in her urine. As has been stated, there could be no concrete conclusions as to how Natalie had died, but there was much rumor and speculation in the days that followed. For example, there was a great deal of attention paid to her boyfriend, given that he was a natural suspect, having been the past person to see Natalie alive, as well as the person who found her corpse first. Yet Natalie's family did not and still do not believe that her boyfriend had anything to do with her untimely death. There was also a great amount of conjecture regarding a supposed eating disorder that Natalie had been dealing with, and that the cardiac arrest she suffered was a direct result of malnutrition. Given the mysterious circumstances and a plethora of different theories put forward to explain Natalie's death, it is almost impossible to decide on a definitive explanation as to how or why she passed away. What's clear is that she had absolutely no history of mental illness, had no history of drug use, and was in perfect health right up until that Thanksgiving weekend. Yet suddenly, she appears to have had some kind of psychotic break for no obvious reason at all. One moment, her boyfriend was dropping her back at the guest cabin, and she was perfectly normal. The next, she was stripped naked, and she was sprinting through the snow-covered woods in the dark at such a speed that she collided with tree trunks as she ran, with the whole episode ending in her dropping dead just a few hundred yards away from where she was staying. We have to admit, the situation is truly and terrifyingly bizarre, with the information at hand raising many more questions than answers. Although the coroner gave the explanation of excited delirium, it has proved to be a controversial diagnosis. The condition known as excited delirium is not recognized by the World Health Organization, the American Psychiatric Association, or the American Medical Association, and therefore not listed a medical condition in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The UK Independent Advisory Panel on Deaths in Custody suggests that the syndrome should be termed sudden death in restraint syndrome in order to enhance clarity. Examples of deaths due to the condition are found primarily in restraint or attempted restraint situations, while medical preconditions and symptoms attributed to the syndrome are far more varied. In which case, can we even place any credence in such an explanation? And if we dismiss it entirely, we are left with a gaping hole in Natalie's story in trying to explain just how she lost her life. But still, is it possible that Natalie encountered someone or something in or around that cabin that gave her such a fright that it could have triggered a highly panicked state that could have been confused with so called excited delirium? And if so, just what was it that she encountered? Could it have been some kind of twilight creeper who posed such a terrifying threat that Natalie abandoned all reason and logic, deciding it was better to run naked into the snow in order to escape such a threat? Or perhaps it was something far worse, a large, wild, aggressive animal, perhaps, that wasn't about to display the same kind of subtlety and was about to smash its way into the cabin to devour her. It's unclear what caused such a state of fear that night, but one thing is clear in abundance, that we will never know exactly what happened to Natalie Driscoll, and that we'll have to accept that here we are, walking the earth, knowing that at any moment, we too could simply fall down dead from some mysterious ailment that leaves our loved ones as baffled as they are heartbroken. I live in Belgium and am currently 21 years old. These events took place when I was around 8 to 12 years old. My grandparents used to live in an older home in the countryside, not too far from the city. At first glance, this house was amazing. It had a yard surrounding the entirety of the property, and me and my cousins used to play there a lot. It had a fishing pond with koi fish in the back, a huge walnut tree on the side, and lots of space to play around in. Lots of our family parties took place in this house, and we visited with my parents every Wednesday for lunch to eat my grandmother's amazing pancakes. It was an older home, and we used to sleep over there quite frequently. I don't remember much of my nights there, but there were some things that always creeped me out about this house. To paint a picture, the house had two entrances, one in the front, which I never witnessed anyone using, and the door in the back that came into the kitchen. In the kitchen, you had an open doorway going into the living room, right in front of the back door entrance, and on the right, a long hallway. All the way at the end of the hallway was the playroom, a room full of toys and games where we used to spend most of the time during family parties when we weren't playing in the yard. My grandparents' bedrooms were on the ground floor right next to the wooden stairs. The first floor had two guest rooms, one right to the left of the stairs, with one regular bed and a bunk bed, and one all the way to the right of the stairs with a king-sized bed. You also had a bathroom diagonally of the stairs, and in the guest room to the left, you had a door that led into a small room. To start off this story, we'll talk about the small room in the back of the guest room. This door was always locked. My grandfather used to tell us this room should not, under any circumstance, be entered without his permission, and I've only seen the inside once when he went to grab some old things from my father when I was still a child. Me and my sister used to sleep in this guest room whenever we would sleep over, and most nights were uneventful. Though for a reason I can't seem to explain, this house always gave me the creeps. At first, I thought it was because it's such an old home, and I've always been a person with a vivid imagination. However, after a while, it became apparent my intuition wasn't as far off as I thought it was. Many things took place in this house, and I will try to keep it as chronological as possible. The first thing I remember being relatively freaked out by was when my grandparents' cat, Tom, died after a long, relaxing life. I was laying on the couch with him and petting him, as I used to do so many times during my stays. He was a cuddly and fat cat, truly a beauty, but at this point, he was as old, if not older, than I was. As I was petting him, I put my hand on his stomach while watching TV and subconsciously matched my breathing to his. This is is when I noticed I was getting lightheaded trying to keep up with his breathing. It was as if he was hyperventilating. Concerned, I told my grandmother something was wrong with Tom. I explained what I noticed, and she assured me she would take him to the vet. I slept over that night and woke up early in the morning. When I came downstairs, I walked through the long hallway going into the kitchen for breakfast, as my grandparents always made sure we had something to eat when we woke up. As I was walking, I saw both my grandparents to the bathroom to my left, right before the door to the kitchen. They were squatting down, and I went in to see what was happening. To my surprise, they looked at me concerned, and I glanced over at what they were doing. It was Tom. He was in a basket, not moving. My first thought would have been that he was sleeping like he always did, but judging by the look on my grandparents' faces, I figured out quickly what had happened. Tom had died during the night. Of course, I realized this could be a freaky coincidence, but looking back, I don't know if it was. The reason I say this is because this is when the scary things started to happen. Not long after, I started to see a woman in a white dress in the corner of my eyes, walking into the bathroom Tom died in when I would be passing the hallway. I was a scared child, so I never had the guts to walk in after her to see if I just imagined it. I would just run to someone as fast as I could in order to feel safe, and I knew no one would believe me. I never mentioned it to anyone, not even my sister, who used to sleep over with me and is only 2 years older. I didn't want to seem paranoid or like I'd been crying for attention or something. I started running down this hallway as fast as I could whenever no one was around to see me, as I was scared of it by now. I slept over less because I no longer felt comfortable in this house, and made sure to always have someone around when I was there. However, there would be times when we'd have no choice but to sleep over, or when I would forget for a split second how scared I was, and agree to sleep over. My grandparents are amazing people, and I love them with all my heart. If they asked me to sleep over, saying no would be close to impossible for me. My sister and I slept in the guest room with a locked door. We would often sleep in the bunk beds together. I didn't feel very scared with her. I've always felt like she was protecting me as a child, and even now as a young adult. On a few occasions, as my sister would be fast asleep, I would hear sounds coming from the room behind the locked door. I remember once I thought someone tried opening it from the other side, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I just went under the covers as I always did in order to feel safe. I think everyone has at some point. Often I would fall asleep afterward, with no more sounds or scares. Some time had passed between my nightly stays at my grandparents', and for the first time in a few weeks, I decided to sleep over again. My sister wasn't with me this time. I was going to be spending the night alone, which in hindsight creeped me out. Reminding myself of what had happened in the past, I thought I would sleep in the other guest room that night. My grandparents, though surprised, happily readied the big bed for me to sleep in. Night came around, and I was relaxed in bed trying to fall asleep. As I was drifting to sleep, I suddenly felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I heard tapping on the window behind the closed blinds. This room was on the side of the big tree in the yard, so I shook it off thinking it was a branch hitting the window and closed my eyes again. However, the tapping continued. One tap, two, three, silence. A few seconds passed. One tap, two, three, silence. I started to get skeptical. Why would a branch hit the window at a set pattern? It didn't make sense. If it was the wind that caused the branch to move, wouldn't it be random? I stood up, pushed aside the curtain to look outside, and saw nothing at first. For a second I felt relieved nothing was on the other side. But then I realized the tree, it's a few meters or a few feet from the window. There was no branch that would be able to hit it, even with a good amount of wind. I couldn't make sense of it, so I looked around for anything that would cause this noise. Nothing would be able to hit this window so high up, not to mention the intervals of the taps. It was too regular. It had to be done on purpose. I got scared. I ran back to my bed and hid under the covers again, but not even a minute later, the tapping started again. At this point, I was crying. The more taps I heard, the louder I became until I started yelling "stop" as loud as I could. My grandparents ran upstairs and came into the room super concerned. The tapping had stopped. They saw how upset I was, hugging me and asking me what happened. I said something was outside my window, but to no one's surprise, there was nothing there. My grandfather decided it would be better if I slept with him tonight, and my grandmother decided to sleep in this room. After calming down, I slept peacefully. In the morning, they tried asking me again what had happened. I told them something scared me by tapping on the window, and as I initially figured, they said it must have been the tree outside. Too ashamed of myself, I just agreed with them, ready to forget it ever happened. Fast forward a few months. I hadn't slept over at the house for quite a while, and it was time for me and my sister to spend another night there. At this point, I kind of forgot how scary it could be, and to no surprise, that seemed to be my downfall. As a side note, I've always been an insomniac, spending hours falling asleep sometimes. Never once in my stays have I heard my grandparents' bedroom door at the bottom of the stairs open after they went to bed. In the middle of the night, it must have been around 1 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps coming up the wooden, creaking stairs that stopped at the top. The open door to the bedroom was immediately to the left of these stairs, so whoever was walking up had to take one more step towards the doorway to be visible from where I was laying. My sister, snoring in the top bunk, didn't seem to be bothered by this, but I was scared out of my mind. My grandparents would at least show themselves to us, to look in, to check in on us. But there was no one in the doorway. No more sounds. We always kept the light on in the hallway, so anyone that would even try to peek in would be obvious. But there was no such thing. It felt like an eternity, but after a few minutes, I started to calm down, blaming my vivid imagination, and decided to go back to sleep. A few hours afterward, I woke up again, this time with a full bladder. Being half asleep, I forgot what transpired earlier and gladly stood up to go to the bathroom. I did my thing, washed my hands, and walked out of the bathroom. As I was walking towards the room, I noticed from the corner of my eyes my sister in the mirror above the sink looking back at me from the reflection. I remember thinking I just hadn't seen her pass me as I was washing my hands or something, and went back to my room. To my horror, I saw my sister on the top bunk, sleeping like a baby. Then it hit me what had transpired earlier. My heart sank. I threw the door shut and locked the door, terrified like a deer that had just seen a tiger in the distance. I just stood there, not knowing whether I should wake someone, scream, whatever I had to do to get rid of this pit I had in my stomach. I couldn't fathom what had happened on this night. I just sat at the door for what felt like hours trying to make sense of it. Once the sun started coming up, I felt less scared. I was so tired, I just decided to lay in my bed. I couldn't sleep though, and in the early morning, I heard my grandparents' door open and decided to go downstairs. I I needed company, conscious company at least. I didn't tell anyone again, not until a few years later. I never slept there again. I didn't feel safe there anymore, and to me, sleeping there was like having a nightmare. I found excuse after excuse not to stay until my grandparents finally moved out. The house was getting too expensive for them, and it was too much to keep it clean and in a good state. So they moved to a small house not too far from my uncle to be able to spend more time with their children and grandchildren. They are happy there and live quite comfortably. I slept over there once, luckily without any problems, but deep down, I am always on edge being alone in the home of my grandparents and never feel truly comfortable there. I loved that old house. Our family made a lot of memories there, and it was super fun to play in and around the home with my cousins. But never in my life would I want to spend another night in that godforsaken place. On December 14th, 2014, a teenage boy is exploring the woods around the back roads of Beaver County, Pennsylvania, around 30 feet from the nearest path. It is a quiet, rarely traveled area where the nearest tarmacked road is just under a mile away, one that cuts through a residential area that hosts only around a dozen or so homes, with minimal traffic, little more than a locally known shortcut to and from Route 989. The young lad is in a world of his own, enjoying the peace and tranquility of nature, completely unaware of what he is about to stumble across. He only spots what he is about to discover because it looks extremely out of place. Even among the death and decay of the Pennsylvania winter, the thing has a distinct air of morbidity about it. When he recognizes what it is, he turns on his heels and runs screaming from the woods, tears in his eyes, his heart racing in his chest, because what he had discovered that gray December day was a severed head. Only this wasn't the disembodied head of a newly murdered person. This particular head had been embalmed, preserved. When the police finally arrived, hours later, they discovered that the eyes of the severed head were shut, but the mouth was wide open. They intensively searched the surrounding area for any signs of the body it had once been attached to, but found nothing. The head was so well preserved that its face was still definitively recognizable, but a subsequent facial reconstruction yielded no clues to the owner's identity. Forensic examiners estimated that it had been there for between 1 week and a month, just lying there among the fallen leaves, waiting to be discovered. If the gray hairs that covered her scalp were anything to go by, it was thought that the owner of the severed head was anything from 50 to 80 years of age. An anatomy professor turned forensic artist by the name of Michelle Vitali examined the head in excruciating detail by request of the local police department. After hours upon hours of study, she came to a shocking conclusion that whoever had severed the head had done so with the skill of an expert pathologist, that they must have had some kind of anatomical training to have completed the task with such precision, a conclusion shockingly reminiscent of the world-famous 19th century serial killer, Jack the Ripper. When we lifted the skin flap at the nape of the neck, we could see that the whole purpose of that was to access the key joint that would preserve both the head and the vertebral column, she told local news reporters during a horrifying interview. This is not anybody going with a kitchen knife or anything remotely like that. It was well done, and it was placed perfectly. She was dismembered professionally. Another piece of evidence that supported the theory that whoever had severed the head had done so with professional skill was the use of what are known as eye caps, a common mortician's tool. These are devices that reassemble contact lenses and are worn in a chillingly similar way. They slip between the eyeball and the eyelid of the deceased person and are complete with small ridges or spikes that maim the natural curvature of the eye, whilst holding the eyelids shut. The pathologists who examined the embalmed head removed these eye caps and found that the person's eyeballs had been removed, but also made a disturbing discovery. The eyeballs had been replaced with small, red, rubber bouncy balls, the kind a child might play with. Whoever had done such a thing obviously had a sick sense of humor and was undoubtedly a very dangerously disturbed individual. After the initial forensic analysis, the embalmed head was sent over to Salt Lake City-based isoforensics, who undertook isotope testing on it. For those unfamiliar with the technique, isotopes are particles that can be found in the human body that come from drinking water, that can be traced back to that time. My uncle returned home without his farmhand, Wilkes, a common mortician's, not overnight camping. We just wanted to go out in the warm lake in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountain. Find they had heard a single gunshot out in the woods. To be good till one Friday morning. Stood there for an unusually long amount of time just staring at him before he finally walked away. Rick could then hear what sounded like the washing machine start up, then the shower turning on. He
Parašykite
recalls
čia
thinking
kažkas.
the entire situation was odd,
Bet ką
but did
parašykite čia,
eventually
aš
manage to fall
nesuprantu.
asleep.
Niekas
The
man čia
next day
neveikia.
started out like any other until my aunt returned home
Reis
from
išmiegoti, aš
church.
vėl 4
She
valandą
had to
ryto
deliver the
prasigudau.
terrible news to my uncle that his lifelong friends that owned the local restaurant, bar, market, etc. had been brutally hacked to death the night before with an axe. They were a husband and wife that had their home attached
Jeigu
to
galit,
their
parašykite
business.
čia, bet ką.
Upon hearing the news,
Būkit
my
saibi
cousin Rick
žmonės.
thought back to Tom coming in that
Eik,
night
na.
covered in blood. He took my aunt aside to tell her what he had witnessed. and to see if maybe Tom would have been working that late. But of course, the answer was no.
Gyvas.
She called the
Ačiū.
sheriff's office, who came out right away.
Erikas, ačiū.
Luckily, some blood was left on the washing machine.
Gerai,
And even though
išjungiu.
DNA evidence was nothing back then like it is today, they were still able to trace the blood to one of the victims. The thing that scares me the most about this is that it came out
Gerai,
in court
išmiegoti.
that Tom had stated to the sheriff that when he returns to my uncle's home that night,
Prabudau.
if anyone had been awake, he was going to kill them all, and now wishes that he had. You see, I was sleeping on the couch
Prabudau ir
opposite of
pavalgiau.
my cousin that night. My mom never let me spend the night.
Gerai, viskas, čia tai nebematau. Piznių gulti. Kol dar laiko yra.
Okay, so, a little bit of backstory for this. My great-grandmother's second husband was apparently a total sadist who systematically abused her grandchildren for many, many years, in pretty much every way you can imagine. These grandchildren happened to be my dad and his sisters, and it had a horrendous effect on them, as you can probably imagine. It was also totally unknown to anyone but them until
Yes.
quite a while after he died, which coincidentally was around the same time I was born. So as I said, the abuse had a really harsh effect on my family's collective psyche.
Nu, ko laiko yra
And it
pamiegoti
made
dar.
its vigilance to the point
Iki
of
kol
paranoia
atsibust.
when it came to protecting me from a similar fate.
Opa.
As a result, I was basically never allowed to play outside without strict supervision, and I most certainly was never allowed to go to sleepovers at my friends' houses when I was a kid. Anyway, this story takes place back in the early 90s, when I was about 7 or 8 years old. My family was living down in Florida just when the holidays were about to roll around. We were a very close family, for reasons I already stated, so my Nana lived with us right up until the day she passed. She helped out around the house, and with a lot of childcare stuff, so whenever I was home due to school holidays or whatever, she would always look after me whenever my mom and dad had to work. I adored her with all my heart. She was just about the best Nana that anyone could ever wish for, and she was tough as an old boot, too. So this particular year, I was lucky enough to have gotten the one thing I really, really wanted Santa to bring me: a brand new pair of roller skates. I was obsessed with them, and from the moment I got them, I was itching to practice so I could get good enough to start going really fast, or nail some tricks on them. One afternoon, I'm zooming up and down the sidewalk outside our house, getting better and better with each passing hour, while Nana is sitting on the porch and keeping a close eye on me in between bouts of reading a magazine or a book or something. Then at one point, the phone rings, and Nana basically has no choice but to duck inside to answer it, since it might have been my mom or dad saying they needed to stay late at work or something. I don't know. Something important anyway. I'm guessing she dithered on calling me inside, knowing I would kick up a fuss if I had to stop skating even for a minute. So she must have figured that she could probably duck inside and answer the phone without it being too much of a risk. But as she did, she kept the main door open so she could still see me through the screen door. It took a minute or two for her to get back from the call, but nothing went down during that time. So I figured that gave her a little peace of mind that she didn't have to worry about me all the time. When she gets back, she goes back to reading her thing while I was hard at work learning to spin on the spot or whatever trick I had my heart set on learning. Then after maybe another 45 minutes or so, she calls to me that it was time for a lemonade break and that we had to go inside. I remember begging her with everything I had to just please, please, please let me skate for just a little while longer. I managed to bargain with her somehow, telling her I'd skate just a few more minutes, but also swearing that I would come inside as soon as she made the lemonade. No ifs or buts. She kind of scowls at me for a second, probably silently cursing the fact that she couldn't quite say no to me whenever I begged her like that. But she eventually agreed before going inside to get the lemonade ready. But when she did, She tells me to sing as loud as I can so she can hear me from the kitchen and know that I was still there. So I did as I was told, and warbled all the Boys to Men lyrics I knew while I continued to skate up and down. Then, maybe only a few minutes goes by, and I look up to see this big old van turn onto our street. It starts cruising along all slow, almost looking like they were lost or looking for something. But I mean, I didn't pay it any mind. I was a kid, naive, and besides, I was too busy being happy with my skates to really consider any danger it might pose. And on top of that, I was with my tough old Nana, and nothing could ever hurt me so long as she was around. Or at least, that's what I thought. So as it rolls up alongside me and slows to a stop, I just carry on trying my very best to twirl on the spot with my skates. In fact, knowing me, I probably tried to show off a little given I had an impromptu audience. The next thing I know, the passenger side of the van opens, and a very, very tall man steps out. I know everyone is tall when you have yet to hit 10 years old, but this guy probably towered over all the other grown-ups he was around, too. He was skinny to boot. He looked like a scarecrow and a skeleton's love child or something. Just all gangly limbs with a shock of salt and pepper hair, messily strewn across his scalp. He approaches me and asks me which way the highway is, and I just pointed back down the street. I am not even sure that was the right direction, but I sure as heck wanted to be helpful to a stranger. I remember he smiled and thanked me, and it was only then that I started to get nervous. It was his teeth. They were all discolored and crooked. I think most kids associate monsters with their teeth. Maybe most adults do too. I know I certainly do. And seeing that guy's teeth put the fear of God into me. But I tried to stay polite when he asked me how my Christmas went, showing him my new skates when he asked me what Santa had brought me that year. It was then that he told me that Santa had been extra generous to him and his family that year, and had brought his daughter so many presents that she didn't even want all of them. Now, my family has always been close-knit, loving and generous with their money. They just never had a lot of it. So holidays for us were always pretty sparse affairs, which is why, when the Scarecrow Man told me his daughter got so much that she didn't even want some of her presents, I couldn't quite believe my ears. And when he actually offered me a Barbie-themed dollhouse, one I actually really did want, I almost forgot about how nervous I was of him. It wasn't enough to completely shake the fear out of me, though. So when he told me he had it in the back of the van, asking me if I'd like to come take a look, I just started skating away from him, shaking my head, silently. But instead of just shrugging it off and getting back into his van, he starts to follow me back towards my parents' place, asking if it was where I lived, if my parents were home, that kind of stuff. We hadn't had any stranger danger lessons in school, so it was only out of pure instinct that I unlatched the gate to my parents' place and began to wail for my Nana. No sooner had I let out the second cry than my Nana appears with this big old cast iron pan in her hand and comes tearing up the path towards me and what I know now to be my potential abductor, and she's screaming bloody murder as she does so. I didn't see this at the time, but from what my mom told me years later, at my Nana's funeral, this guy takes one look at Nana, fills his britches, and just bugs the heck out of there as she chases his van up the street. I do remember seeing her swinging that pan around and telling him to come back so she could beat him black and blue, and as much as her display of furiousness freaked me out, I was just grateful she could be twice as scary as Scarecrow Man had been. The way my mom tells it, Nana had tried to get the van's tag number, only to find it didn't have one. The guy was a predator, through and through, and had obviously been prepping and gearing up to kidnap someone, for whatever reason that may be. Next thing I know, the cops are at our house. My dad has come home early from work, and I am having to tell people over and over again what the guy looked like, while they write things down and ask me a zillion questions about the color of the van, the guy's clothes, like every little detail you could possibly think of. Needless to say, I didn't get to go out on my skates again for the rest of the holidays. So like I mentioned, this whole story came up at my Nana's funeral when we were telling tales about her. And the one really freaky thing about the whole incident, and something I didn't know until years and years after, was that when me and Nana described the Scarecrow Man to the cops, they both shot each other a look like, holy crap, before telling Nana and my dad that we had pretty much just described another one of their perps to them, to a T. We had described a guy that had made several other attempts at kidnapping kids in broad daylight over the holiday period. A guy they were desperate to get their hands on, because they knew it was just a matter of time before his luck turned, and he managed to trick a kid into getting into the van. Knowing I could well have been dead before my 10th birthday, having endured unimaginable torment before I was finally put out of my misery, it's something that makes my skin crawl, even to this day. Near Central California, there's an old mining community that you've probably heard of called the Mother Lode. It's an area of California that was a large part of the gold rush. That is where this story takes place. On the way out of town, down a long road almost like a stretch of highway, you suddenly veer off to the right and go down a rough, older road less than a quarter-mile down. The road dead ends into a circle parking area with a gate at the end, which is kept locked by the city. If you were to go past the gate, you would end up at a popular lake in my area. When you park at the end, you are basically surrounded on one side by steep hills dotted with poison oak and tall pine and oak trees. The other side is a steep downhill slope to the lake. So basically, you are in a bowl. We were told that if we were to go up to the left, up the steep hill, that there would be an old mine, long abandoned by the miners that the county didn't close. About 250 feet up the steep hill, we found the old mine, almost hidden in a slight divot in the hillside that you wouldn't see unless you walked right up on it. To get into the mine, you had to climb down a slight slope into the ground and go over some medium-sized rocks on the ground, leftovers from when they blasted into the mountain. The mine itself was about 7 feet tall and 6 feet wide, which formed a tunnel that was about 250 feet into the mountain. The mine had rough rock walls with a colorful vein running along the left wall. This vein is said to indicate the presence of gold by its ribbons of colors. The tunnel followed along that vein, taking at least 2 turns with a couple of short, dead-ended offshoots. As you got deeper into the mine, you had to step carefully to avoid mud, which is what the old ore cart tracks were handy for. Ore carts hauled blasted rocks out of the mine on like mini railroad tracks. Once you were inside the mine, it was completely and utterly dark and silent, except for the sounds of the wind howling and dripping water. We took our time walking into the dark tunnel until we eventually reached the tunnel's end, a wall of solid rock. Disappointed, we started on the way back to the entrance. My buddy decided to stop near the entrance to chip some sample rock from the vein in the wall. He promised to be quick, so I just stood and waited for him. I maybe stood there for a couple of minutes before I heard the first strange sound. It sounded like a small pile of rocks toppling over, echoing up the shaft towards us. I tried to tell my buddy what I just heard, but he didn't hear me, so I just let it go. Not even 2 minutes later, I heard it again, this time closer. This time, I got his attention to tell him what I just heard, but he just thought I was being paranoid. He said, "You're just hearing an echo from me." I tried to take his word for it, but again, not even 2 minutes later, There it was again. That time, the sound came with a feeling of panic and fear. That was when I literally just said, "You only have to be faster than your slowest friend." Then I just took off running, over the rocks and out of the mine. When he came out a few minutes later, he said he walked back to the end and didn't see any fallen rocks. I didn't go back there until a few years later with another buddy of mine. Same as before. Up the steep hill we went. The mine looked exactly as it did before, front to back, with no signs of a cave-in. Just as my other buddy had done before, my buddy just had to stop on the way out to chip away at that vein, winding along the left wall. As I was standing there waiting, I heard another strange, scary sound. But that time, it sounded like a rattle, and we both heard it. The only way we could describe it was it sounded just like a baby rattle. We both froze and looked at each other, puzzled and anxious, illuminated in each other's headlamps. Not even a couple minutes later, we both heard it again, the sound of a baby rattle. We both grew up here, so we knew it wasn't a rattlesnake or anything, which are common here. When we heard it the third time, the creepy feeling came right back to me, and I just ran out of there as fast as I could, practically tripping on the rocks on the way out. I haven't gone back since. I can't describe it. Something about that old mine just came with a bad, scary feeling, and both people that went there with me felt it as well. An acquaintance of mine, who happened to have been a cop, once told me this little tale he experienced several years ago. Back then, he was a deputy and still new to the patrol scene. Since he was new to it, he got called often to more simple tasks, tasks that made the more experienced deputies' jobs easier. One night, the deputy got a request over his radio to sit on a suicide scene. The victim was still inside the home, and they needed the deputy to sit and guard the main entry to the home until the coroner got there to take the body. They didn't want any relatives or anyone else to enter the scene and mess up evidence. Basically, that was a standard procedure. So the deputy got to the home of the suicide victim and confirmed with the cops already on the scene that he was there to wait for the coroner. It was the middle of the night, so the deputy grabbed his flip phone out of the patrol car and settled on the front porch to play some Snake. All was totally quiet around him after everyone else left. All the deputy could hear were the occasional sounds of distant barking dogs and the faint sounds of the sparse highway traffic. The silence did indeed make him a little nervous, especially considering what lay only a few feet away and invisible to him only because of a wall. So it was only natural that his instincts had his ears on high alert. So he was startled when he suddenly thought he heard a rustling sound, seemingly coming from inside the house behind him. All he could do was sit there and wait and listen intently. A few minutes went by, though, and he didn't hear anything else, so he just figured he probably heard the house settling or something. Over half an hour went by, and the deputy was starting to get a little drowsy staring at Snake on his small flip phone. So he flipped it shut and sat back for a few minutes to relax. But then suddenly, there was that sound again, which seemed louder this time. A strange rustling sound, like maybe rustling papers, he thought to himself, puzzled. As he sat there and listened hard, he heard it again, and that time he was sure it was coming from inside the house behind him, where the victim was. At that point, the deputy admits he was pretty scared. He didn't want to call for backup until he was sure there was someone inside the house. But he also didn't want to go inside the dark, creepy death scene by himself to investigate either. So he stood up and waited once again for any noise, while resting his hand on the weapon in his belt. Then The deputy drew his weapon as a loud sound from behind him caused him to spin around and face a large window by the front door, covered by vertical hanging blinds. As he turned around to face the window, an explosion of movement disturbed the vertical blinds. The deputy did admit to me in telling of this story that he did in fact definitely jump and scream, as most anyone would. The deputy's vision quickly cleared, and he stared at the face on the other side of the window, definitely not expecting to see that particular face staring back at him. The deputy screamed and went wide-eyed. The face staring back at him made a startled sound and went wide-eyed as well. Then, for a quiet moment, man and feline eyed each other before both turning away, feeling stupid. I guess the victim had a pet cat, which ended up most likely going to a relative of the victim's. The deputy admitted to me after telling me this story that he felt it was one of the scariest instances he had ever had in his entire career. I wasn't as scared as I should have been, but my fear gene is broken, and I had been drinking, so... We have a lake less than an hour from home, and my daughter's friend had never been camping. So we decided to do a quick overnight there. We, mom and daughter, 18 then, camp a lot and like the solitude, so we often try to find the most remote places. No campsite or anything, just drive up and find a space. So we found this nice little peninsula big enough for about 3 campsites, and it being Sunday, we were hoping the other 2 groups would leave. They did eventually, and we had the place very much to ourselves. As the night goes on, we have a nice fire, sing, laugh, I'm drinking wine, we're making s'mores. Everything is perfect until we go to sleep. About an hour in, the girls are bugging me to wake up because it's raining, and we need to put the cover on the tent. It was a huge tent, so all hands were needed. By now, the wind is blowing, and we're struggling, but we finally get it covered, and it's back to sleep we go. Until a motorcycle, more specifically, a dirt bike, at about 2 a.m., just riding circles around the peninsula. Mind you, this is literally a small enough area that only 3 large tents plus 3 cars would fit, and there's nothing else nearby but bushes and the lake. There would be no reason to be there, as it was obvious we were alone. Up, down, around, and stop, never cutting the engine. I just want to sleep, so I go to the front of the tent and unzip it. I look outside and see him just staring, so I climb out of the tent and stare back. It's dark, and I can't tell if this creep can even see me, so I go back in the tent, frustrated. The girls ask what he's doing, and when I tell them, they get really frightened. I tell them I'm gonna go give him a piece of my mind. They are terrified, demand that I don't leave the tent. So I settle back in and wait. Up, around, circle, engine rev, idle, over and over. This guy goes on for at least another hour. I've had it. Down, up, around with all that annoying, blatting motocross sound blasting by our tent back and forth and stop. I look out. He's staring again. I'm about to go stomping over to go tell him off when I get the tingles all down my spine. He was facing directly towards our tent, saying nothing, just still and staring. I realize I have no weapons, no way to protect the girls, and he's between us and the car. I wait. I'm outside the tent, but I haven't made a move forward because now instinct and logic have the better of me, and I realize that an aggressive approach is probably the wrong move. I stay stock still just like the rider for what felt like an eternity, both of us staring. Must have been 20 minutes I stood there, and then just like that, he took off. drove off the peninsula and out of earshot, and never came back. To this day, I'll never know what that was about, or if I did the right thing. I can only say I'm glad I never confronted him. My gut just told me no. As for my daughter and I think I need to buy a weapon if we're going to camp alone like this again. I was 22 and lived in my parents' house while they had left South Africa to work abroad. My grandmother moved in with me to help out, as I was a single mother while still studying in university. In the end, we helped each other because she was also on oxygen due to chronic lung disease. Growing up in South Africa, we are taught from a very young age that it's important to make sure all doors are locked and windows are closed at night. Being a very private person, I would always have my curtains closed. People can be extremely nosy here. Well, one night after a long day of studies and simply being a mom, we locked all the doors and shut the windows, pulling all the curtains closed to settle in for the night. Now, my son was not a great sleeper and would often wake up throughout the night. After dozing off, later that evening he woke me up asking for his bottle, and I decided to check the time, slightly blinded by the TV's light. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. 10 p.m. Something wasn't right. I felt like we weren't alone. As I peered through the doorway into the passage, I could have sworn I saw a dark shadow almost crawling across the tiled floor. I'm imagining things. I must be. Shrugging it off, I passed my son his bottle. Still, I swear I'm hearing sounds, like someone coming up the stairs this time, but that's in the opposite direction. The railing creaks, and I'm about to get out of my bed to check, when a face peeks around the corner of my bedroom door. Gran, is that you? Expecting her to be needing help with something, so I reached for my phone to create light, as I had already switched the TV off again. A man storms into my room and grabs my phone before I can hide it. I'm in so much shock, yet I know exactly what is going on at that moment. Take whatever you want. Please, just don't hurt us. I say it calmly. He puts his index finger to his lips. He's just standing there, as though he is waiting and watching guard. Then suddenly, 3 other men rush in and ask question after question. Where's the safe? Where's the weapons? Where's this and that? They were all armed, and I had no idea what they had planned for us. I just couldn't keep up, trying to answer all their questions. Why would I, a single mother in a house with her child and grandmother, have a weapon? In all honesty, I've never even owned one. They took everything, and then insisted on taking my car keys. I tried telling them I couldn't remember where I had put them, but they stuck a weapon in my 2-year-old son's face and asked again, where are the keys? So I told them where I thought I'd left them. After going through all my things, taking what they wanted, and were then ready to leave, I'm presuming they were throwing everything into my car for the getaway. The one guy chose to stick around in my room a little longer. Give me a kiss, he whispered. Oh no, I was shouting in my mind, still trying to stay composed. He put out his hand and took mine. Then the others called for him, and as he pulled away, I dug my nails into his hand and scratched. If I was going to do anything, I was going to get DNA off one of them. If no one could see what was going on in my home, I would find a way to get justice. Don't scream, they said, and ran down the stairs. I ran down after them and screamed as loud as I could for help from the neighbors, as they sped off in my car. Standing outside in the pitch black, calling for anyone to help us. and yet no one heard. It felt like hours had passed. No phones, no laptops, no means of contact. They took everything, and I couldn't even call my parents. To this day, these men have never been caught, and I wonder, if I had my curtains open, perhaps someone might have seen. People were still awake. I am now 35, and since that night, I refuse to go to sleep without my curtains open and at least one light on. This happened in 2004. I was a new college graduate starting my career in healthcare at a hospital 2 hours away from where I grew up. The hospital I worked at was huge, a level 1 trauma center. I work in a highly specialized area. There were only 2 other people at the hospital with my licensure. That's important because we spent a lot of time working alone in our department and had to stagger our shifts for coverage. I had the early shift. I arrived at 5:45 in the morning. Staff parking was several city blocks away from the hospital, and they sent a shuttle to pick employees up. The lot was surrounded by an urban forest. The city tried to leave as much green space and trees as possible. There was nothing else near the parking lot at the time. Since I arrived so early, the shuttle service had to be called when I arrived. The call button was located at the shuttle stop, meaning you had to leave your car to communicate with the dispatch. I was always creeped out because, even though there were parked cars, there were never any employees in the lot at the time I came in. The overnight shift didn't change until 7 a.m. A few weeks after I started working there, I had settled into the shuttle routine and gotten more comfortable. At this time, cell phone service was spotty at best, and I didn't own a smartphone, so it wasn't very reliable. One afternoon, when I returned to my car, I found a note left on my windshield. It read, "Hot and sweet you are." I glanced around and didn't see anyone. I was perplexed, but not really frightened. Another week passed. I forgot about the note, until one afternoon I returned to my car and found a flower in the windshield wiper and another note. This one read, "I really love your dimples. I could make you smile." What the heck? I had just moved to this town and didn't have any friends beyond the other 2 people in my department. I didn't know anyone else. I did feel creeped out this time and began feeling like I was being watched or something. Early in the mornings, I would park as close to the shuttle stop as possible, buzz the dispatch, and then wait in my car with the doors locked. I often imagined I heard shuffling noises like shoes scraping through the gravel, and I couldn't see all the way to the dark corners of the lot. When I returned to my car in the afternoons, I carried my pepper spray just in case. I told my coworkers about the notes, and they told me I should tell security. I felt a little silly, but I made a report. Security said they would keep an eye out, whatever that meant. I stopped parking in that lot, opting instead to find parking on the street nearer to the hospital where there were other people around. Things went fine for the next few weeks, until one day I got another note. This time, it was on my car one morning, outside my apartment building. In the same scribbly handwriting, it simply read, "Don't be shy." I was so confused. What did this person want? Obviously, they were following me, and now they knew where I lived, and probably knew I lived alone. I contacted the police. There wasn't much they could do, but they did make some safety recommendations and said they would patrol the neighborhood more often. I took a self-defense class and was hyper-aware of my surroundings. It was worse not knowing who I was dealing with. A few weeks later, a woman was found assaulted and murdered in the trees behind the employee parking lot. They caught the guy a couple days later. I recognized him. He was a contract painter who had been working in my area. The hospital had been remodeling our department, and this painter would come in early, around 6:30 a.m. I made coffee every morning in the break room, and he would come in to get a cup. We made small talk a few times, but never any red flags. Then it came back to me. Sometimes he would call me Dimples. I shivered. Good morning, Dimples. I was shocked that he had literally been right under my nose for weeks. I had been totally alone with him on many occasions, and I never suspected anything. I don't know for certain that he was the one leaving the notes, but they stopped after he was arrested. Anyway, stay safe out there, guys and gals. On the morning after Thanksgiving of 2003, the snow-covered winter wonderland that was the Horn Creek Conference Center in Westcliff, Colorado, made for a peaceful and serene setting. But that peace was to be shattered when the naked corpse of a young woman was found lying frozen in the snow just outside one of the guest cabins. The young woman's name was Natalie Drissel. Natalie was 20 years old when she was found dead, having grown in her native Missouri, then moving to the state of Florida to attend college. During the summer of 2003, Natalie had taken a job working at the Horn Creek Conference Center during a Christian summer camp event that was being held there. It was here that she met her boyfriend, who had a full-time job there, and it was during the Thanksgiving break of 2003 that she decided to make the journey back up to Colorado to visit him, with the couple opting to stay in separate guest cabins for the duration of their trip, given the pious nature of their location. The couple spent Thanksgiving together, taking romantic walks around the snow-covered campgrounds, hand in hand. Afterwards, Natalie's boyfriend dropped her off back at the cabin shortly after midnight of Friday, November 28th, so that she could get some rest. But the next morning, the boyfriend went back to the very same cabin to check up on her, yet found she wasn't there. He looked around a little and was disturbed to find footprints in the snow leading away from the cabin, ones that had obviously been made by someone's bare feet, given the shape and size. This must have sent him into a panic, wondering what could have frightened his girlfriend so much that she fled into the freezing night in nothing but her bare feet. He followed the tracks for a short while into a wooded area around 200 yards from the camp's conference building, before finding her body lying in the snow at around 8:50 a.m. But Natalie wasn't just barefoot. She was completely naked. Her exposed arms and legs were all scratched up and bruised, and by the time her boyfriend found her body, rigor mortis had set in. She was completely stiff, like a wax model, and it must have been extremely traumatizing for him to see someone he loved so dearly in such a terrible state. Custer County Sheriff Fred Jobe said there was only a single set of prints that had led them to Natalie's body, meaning she had not been pursued by anyone in the moments before her death. He also said that the pattern of her footprints appeared to be erratic, as she had been wandering through the area in a daze before she had collapsed. It was also judged that, given the state of rigor mortis she was in, that she had actually died very soon after being dropped off back at the cabin, maybe only 15 to 20 minutes after the boyfriend had departed. An autopsy was performed over at the El Paso County Coroner's Office on November 30th, with the conclusion being that Natalie appeared to have been in a completely healthy state before she had died. Given that there were pine needles in her hair, with dirt and abrasions on her face and shoulder, and coupled with a chaotic patterning among her footprints, it appeared that Natalie had actually run into one or two trees as she fled her cabin. Evidence of such injuries included among other things. Linear scratches on her forehead, cheeks, neck, chest, abdomen, and legs. Small contusions just above the trachea, on her right cheek, and to the right of her chin, and purple contusions on her left forearm, hand, and wrist. Other than evidence of injuries, which the coroner believed were consistent with running through trees and brush, she had no visible external injuries. It is also interesting to note that the autopsy showed that there were no internal injuries to her brain, so we can safely rule out there being some kind of hemorrhage or tumor being to blame for Natalie's strange behavior. While the autopsy did not determine the cause of death, Sheriff Job said, "They've ruled out anything criminal. It's just really, really weird. But we're still hoping to find out something more conclusive." Lee Roybal, officer in charge of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, also commented on the unusual nature of Natalie's death, saying, "It's the strangest thing you've ever seen." Although there could be no definitive answers as to why or how Natalie had died, the coroner was forced to conclude that she had ultimately died from a phenomenon known as excited delirium. She had absolutely no traces of narcotics or alcohol in her system when she died, and despite not being able to give a concrete conclusion that she had died of excited delirium, listed 6 main factors that had caused him to reach such a decision. The first and main point being that she had been found completely naked, having not been obviously pursued by anyone. There were also no internal injuries at all, so no obvious way of telling how she had died. There was also the complete lack of narcotics in her system, so there was no way a drug could be to blame for the erratic state she was in that evening. There was also the possibility that, given she was a recent arrival to a relatively high altitude from sea level Florida, that a lack of oxygen in her brain could be to blame for the delirium. On top of all this, there was an elevated amount of glucose in her urine. As has been stated, there could be no concrete conclusions as to how Natalie had died, but there was much rumor and speculation in the days that followed. For example, there was a great deal of attention paid to her boyfriend, given that he was a natural suspect, having been the past person to see Natalie alive, as well as the person who found her corpse first. Yet Natalie's family did not and still do not believe that her boyfriend had anything to do with her untimely death. There was also a great amount of conjecture regarding a supposed eating disorder that Natalie had been dealing with, and that the cardiac arrest she suffered was a direct result of malnutrition. Given the mysterious circumstances and a plethora of different theories put forward to explain Natalie's death, it is almost impossible to decide on a definitive explanation as to how or why she passed away. What's clear is that she had absolutely no history of mental illness, had no history of drug use, and was in perfect health right up until that Thanksgiving weekend. Yet suddenly, she appears to have had some kind of psychotic break for no obvious reason at all. One moment, her boyfriend was dropping her back at the guest cabin, and she was perfectly normal. The next, she was stripped naked, and she was sprinting through the snow-covered woods in the dark at such a speed that she collided with tree trunks as she ran, with the whole episode ending in her dropping dead just a few hundred yards away from where she was staying. We have to admit, the situation is truly and terrifyingly bizarre, with the information at hand raising many more questions than answers. Although the coroner gave the explanation of excited delirium, it has proved to be a controversial diagnosis. The condition known as excited delirium is not recognized by the World Health Organization, the American Psychiatric Association, or the American Medical Association, and therefore not listed a medical condition in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. The UK Independent Advisory Panel on Deaths in Custody suggests that the syndrome should be termed sudden death in restraint syndrome in order to enhance clarity. Examples of deaths due to the condition are found primarily in restraint or attempted restraint situations. while medical preconditions and symptoms attributed to the syndrome are far more varied. In which case, can we even place any credence in such an explanation? And if we dismiss it entirely, we are left with a gaping hole in Natalie's story in trying to explain just how she lost her life. But still, is it possible that Natalie encountered someone or something in or around that cabin that gave her such a fright that it could have triggered a highly panicked state that could have been confused with so-called excited delirium? And if so, just what was it that she encountered? Could it have been some kind of twilight creeper who posed such a terrifying threat that Natalie abandoned all reason and logic, deciding it was better to run naked into the snow in order to escape such a threat? Or perhaps it was something far worse. A large, wild, aggressive animal, perhaps, that wasn't about to display the same kind of subtlety and was about to smash its way into the cabin to devour her. It's unclear what caused such a state of fear that night. But one thing is clear in abundance, that we will never know exactly what happened to Natalie Driscoll, and that we'll have to accept that here we are, walking the earth, knowing that at any moment, we too could simply fall down dead from some mysterious ailment that leaves our loved ones as baffled as they are heartbroken. I live in Belgium, and I'm currently 21 years old. These events took place when I was around 8 to 12 years old. My grandparents used to live in an older home in the countryside, not too far from the city. At first glance, this house was amazing. It had a yard surrounding the entirety of the property, and me and my cousins used to play there a lot. It had a fishing pond with koi fish in the back, a huge walnut tree on the side, and lots of space to play around in. Lots of our family parties took place in this house, and we visited with my parents every Wednesday for lunch to eat my grandmother's amazing pancakes. It was an older home, and we used to sleep over there quite frequently. I don't remember much of my nights there, but there were some things that always creeped me out about this house. To paint a picture, the house had two entrances, one in the front, which I never witnessed anyone using, and the door in the back that came into the kitchen. In the kitchen, you had an open doorway going into the living room, right in front of the back door entrance, and on the right, a long hallway. All the way at the end of the hallway was the playroom, a room full of toys and games where we used to spend most of the time during family parties when we weren't playing in the yard. My grandparents' bedrooms were on the ground floor right next to the wooden stairs. The first floor had two guest rooms, one right to the left of the stairs, with one regular bed and a bunk bed, and one all the way to the right of the stairs with a king-sized bed. You also had a bathroom diagonally of the stairs, and in the guest room to the left, you had a door that led into a small room. To start off this story, we'll talk about the small room in the back of the guest room. This door was always locked. My grandfather used to tell us this room should not, under any circumstance, be entered without his permission, and I've only seen the inside once when he went to grab some old things from my father when I was still a child. Me and my sister used to sleep in this guest room whenever we would sleep over, and most nights were uneventful. Though for a reason I can't seem to explain, this house always gave me the creeps. At first, I thought it was because it's such an old home, and I've always been a person with a vivid imagination. However, after a while, it became apparent my intuition wasn't as far off as I thought it was. Many things took place in this house, and I will try to keep it as chronological as possible. The first thing I remember being relatively freaked out by was when my grandparents' cat, Tom, died after a long, relaxing life. I was laying on the couch with him and petting him, as I used to do so many times during my stays. He was a cuddly and fat cat, truly a beauty. But at this point, he was as old, if not older than I was. As I was petting him, I put my hand on his stomach while watching TV and subconsciously matched my breathing to his. This is when I noticed I was getting lightheaded trying to keep up with his breathing. It was as if he was hyperventilating. Concerned, I told my grandmother something was wrong with Tom. I explained what I noticed, and she assured me she would take him to the vet. I slept over that night and woke up early in the morning. When I came downstairs, I walked through the long hallway going into the kitchen for breakfast, as my grandparents always made sure we had something to eat when we woke up. As I was walking, I saw both my grandparents to the bathroom to my left, right before the door to the kitchen. They were squatting down, and I went in to see what was happening. To my surprise, they looked at me concerned, and I glanced over at what they were doing. It was Tom. He was in a basket, not moving. My first thought would have been that he was sleeping like he always did, but judging by the look on my grandparents' faces, I figured out quickly what had happened. Tom had died during the night. Of course, I realized this could be a freaky coincidence, but looking back, I don't know if it was. The reason I say this is because this is when the scary things started to happen. Not long after, I started to see a woman in a white dress in the corner of my eyes, walking into the bathroom Tom died in when I would be passing the hallway. I was a scared child, so I never had the guts to walk in after her to see if I just imagined it. I would just run to someone as fast as I could in order to feel safe, and I knew no one would believe me. I never mentioned it to anyone, not even my sister, who used to sleep over with me and is only 2 years older. I didn't want to seem paranoid or like I'd been crying for attention or something. I started running down this hallway as fast as I could whenever no one was around to see me, as I was scared of it by now. I slept over less because I no longer felt comfortable in this house, and made sure to always have someone around when I was there. However, there would be times when we'd have no choice but to sleep over, or when I would forget for a split second how scared I was, and agree to sleep over. My grandparents are amazing people, and I love them with all my heart. If they asked me to sleep over, saying no would be close to impossible for me. My sister and I slept in the guest room with a locked door. We would often sleep in the bunk beds together. I didn't feel very scared with her. I've always felt like she was protecting me as a child, and even now as a young adult. On a few occasions, as my sister would be fast asleep, I would hear sounds coming from the room behind the locked door. I remember once I thought someone tried opening it from the other side, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I just went under the covers as I always did in order to feel safe. I think everyone has at some point. Often I would fall asleep afterward, with no more sounds or scares. Some time had passed between my nightly stays at my grandparents', and for the first time in a few weeks, I decided to sleep over again. My sister wasn't with me this time. I was going to be spending the night alone, which in hindsight creeped me out. Reminding myself of what had happened in the past, I thought I would sleep in the other guest room that night. My grandparents, though surprised, happily readied the big bed for me to sleep in. Night came around, and I was relaxed in bed trying to fall asleep. As I was drifting to sleep, I suddenly felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up as I heard tapping on the window behind the closed blinds. This room was on the side of the big tree in the yard, so I shook it off thinking it was a branch hitting the window, and closed my eyes again. However, the tapping continued. 1 tap, 2, 3, silence. A few seconds passed. 1 tap, 2, 3, silence. I started to get skeptical. Why would a branch hit the window at a set pattern? It didn't make sense. If it was the wind that caused the branch to move, wouldn't it be random? I stood up, pushed aside the curtain to look outside, and saw nothing at first. For a second, I felt relieved nothing was on the other side. But then I realized the tree. It's a few meters or a few feet from the window. There is no branch that would be able to hit it, even with a good amount of wind. I couldn't make sense of it, so I looked around for anything that would cause this noise. Nothing would be able to hit this window so high up, not to mention the intervals of the taps. It was too regular. It had to be done on purpose. I got scared. I ran back to my bed and hid under the covers again, but not even a minute later, the tapping started again. At this point, I was crying. The more taps I heard, the louder I became until I started yelling "stop" as loud as I could. My grandparents ran upstairs and came into the room super concerned. The tapping had stopped. They saw how upset I was, hugging me and asking me what happened. I said something was outside my window, but to no one's surprise, there was nothing there. My grandfather decided it would be better if I slept with him tonight, and my grandmother decided to sleep in this room. After calming down, I slept peacefully. In the morning, they tried asking me again what had happened. I told them something scared me by tapping on the window, and as I initially figured, they said it must have been the tree outside. Too ashamed of myself, I just agreed with them, ready to forget it ever happened. Fast forward a few months. I hadn't slept over at the house for quite a while, and it was time for me and my sister to spend another night there. At this point, I kind of forgot how scary it could be, and to no surprise, that seemed to be my downfall. As a side note, I've always been an insomniac, spending hours falling asleep sometimes. Never once in my stays have I heard my grandparents' bedroom door at the bottom of the stairs open after they went to bed. In the middle of the night, it must have been around 1 a.m. I woke up to the sound of footsteps coming up the wooden, creaking stairs that stopped at the top. The open door to the bedroom was immediately to the left of these stairs, so whoever was walking up had to take one more step towards the doorway to be visible from where I was laying. My sister, snoring in the top bunk, didn't seem to be bothered by this, but I was scared out of my mind. My grandparents would at least show themselves to us, to look in, to check in on us. But there was no one in the doorway. No more sounds. We always kept the light on in the hallway, so anyone that would even try to peek in would be obvious. But there was no such thing. It felt like an eternity, but after a few minutes, I started to calm down, blaming my vivid imagination, and decided to go back to sleep. A few hours afterward, I woke up again, this time with a full bladder. Being half asleep, I forgot what transpired earlier, and gladly stood up to go to the bathroom. I did my thing, washed my hands, and walked out of the bathroom. As I was walking towards the room, I noticed from the corner of my eyes my sister in the mirror above the sink looking back at me from the reflection. I remember thinking I just hadn't seen her pass me as I was washing my hands or something, and went back to my room. To my horror, I saw my sister on the top bunk, sleeping like a baby. Then it hit me. What had transpired earlier. My heart sank. I threw the door shut and locked the door, terrified like a deer that had just seen a tiger in the distance. I just stood there, not knowing whether I should wake someone, scream, whatever I had to do to get rid of this pit I had in my stomach. I couldn't fathom what had happened on this night. I just sat at the door for what felt like hours trying to make sense of it. Once the sun started coming up, I felt less scared. I was so tired, I just decided to lay in my bed. I couldn't sleep though, and in the early morning, I heard my grandparents' door open and decided to go downstairs. I needed company, conscious company at least. I didn't tell anyone again, not until a few years later. I never slept there again. I didn't feel safe there anymore, and to me, sleeping there was like having a nightmare. I found excuse after excuse not to stay until my grandparents finally moved out. The house was getting too expensive for them, and it was too much to keep it clean and in a good state. So they moved to a small house not too far from my uncle to be able to spend more time with their children and grandchildren. They are happy there and live quite comfortably. I slept over there once, luckily without any problems, but deep down, I am always on edge being alone in the home of my grandparents and never feel truly comfortable there. I loved that old house. Our family made a lot of memories there, and it was super fun to play in and around the home with my cousins. But never in my life would I want to spend another night in that God-forsaken place. On December 14th, 2014, a teenage boy is exploring the woods around the back roads of Beaver County, Pennsylvania, around 30 feet from the nearest path. It is a quiet, rarely traveled area where the nearest tarmacked road is just under a mile away, one that cuts through a residential area that hosts only around a dozen or so homes, with minimal traffic, little more than a locally known shortcut to and from Route 989. The young lad is in a world of his own, enjoying the peace and tranquility of nature, completely unaware of what he is about to stumble across. He only spots what he is about to discover because it looks extremely out of place. Even among the death and decay of the Pennsylvania winter, the thing has a distinct air of morbidity about it. When he recognizes what it is, he turns on his heels and runs screaming from the woods, tears in his eyes, his heart racing in his chest, because what he had discovered that gray December day was a severed head. Only this wasn't the disembodied head of a newly murdered person. This particular head had been embalmed, preserved. When the police finally arrived hours later, they discovered that the eyes of the severed head were shut, but the mouth was wide open. They intensively searched the surrounding area for any signs of the body it had once been attached to, but found nothing. The head was so well preserved that its face was still definitively recognizable, but a subsequent facial reconstruction yielded no clues to the owner's identity. Forensic examiners estimated that it had been there for between 1 week and a month, just lying there among the fallen leaves, waiting to be discovered. If the gray hairs that covered her scalp were anything to go by, it was thought that the owner of the severed head was anything from 50 to 80 years of age. An anatomy professor turned forensic artist by the name of Michelle Vitali examined the head in excruciating detail by request of the local police department. After hours upon hours of study, she came to a shocking conclusion: that whoever had severed the head had done so with the skill of an expert pathologist, that they must have had some kind of anatomical training to have completed the task with such precision. A conclusion shockingly reminiscent of the world-famous 19th century serial killer, Jack the Ripper. When we lifted the skin flap at the nape of the neck, we could see that the whole purpose of that was to access the key joint that would preserve both the head and the vertebral column, she told local news reporters during a horrifying interview. This is not anybody going with a kitchen knife or anything remotely like that. It was well done, and it was placed perfectly. She was dismembered professionally. Another piece of evidence that supported the theory that whoever had severed the head had done so with professional skill was the use of what are known as eye caps. a common mortician's tool. These are devices that reassemble contact lenses and are worn in a chillingly similar way. They slip between the eyeball and the eyelid of the deceased person and are complete with small ridges or spikes that maim the natural curvature of the eye, whilst holding the eyelids shut. The pathologists who examined the embalmed head removed these eye caps and found that the person's eyeballs had been removed, but also made a disturbing discovery. The eyeballs had been replaced with small, red, rubber bouncy balls, the kind a child might play with. Whoever had done such a thing obviously had a sick sense of humor and was undoubtedly a very dangerously disturbed individual. After the initial forensic analysis, the embalmed head was sent over to Salt Lake City-based isoforensics, who undertook isotope testing on it. For those unfamiliar with the technique, isotopes are particles that can be found in the human body that come from drinking water that can be traced back to a particular geographical location. When the results of the isotope testing came back, investigators were able to conclude that the woman had spent the previous several months being something of a nomad, having lived, or at least stayed, in areas including West Virginia, Western Maryland, Southern Pennsylvania, and even as far as Eastern Ohio and New York State. Yet, despite there being evidence to the owner of the severed head having lived in so many places, there was little to show that she had ever lived in Beaver County during time leading up to her death or discovered. However, the use of embalming fluid meant that determining the exact time of death was almost impossible. It also made DNA matching next to impossible, as the fluid destroyed nucleotide bonds that enabled such analysis to be undertaken. The small amount that was obtained was so damaged that it could not be matched to any other samples in the national database. But much to the relief of those involved with the analysis, it was discovered that there was no criminal element to her death, that the cardiac arrest was the most likely explanation for her demise. This was due to toxicology tests that had shown that there were trace amounts of lidocaine and atropine in her system, which are both varieties of medication that are used to treat irregular heart issues. Most likely a cardiac arrest, but not completely confirmed. One homicide detective was said to have been extremely skeptical that the owner of the embalmed head had died of natural causes, having seen far too many cases in which the possessiveness of the killer was displayed in their willingness to tamper and toy with the body of their quarry. When interviewed by journalists, Beaver County Coroner Terry Tatalovich Rossi said, "Could it have been someone with a great deal of anatomical knowledge? Yes. Could it have been someone who is just peculiar or bizarre? The answer to that question is also yes. We just don't know at this point." Michael O'Brien, the borough police chief, claimed the embalmed head was found so far off the road that it was entirely possible that it could have been simply thrown from a passing car. It was also determined that the scent and flavor of the embalming fluid would have made the flesh very unappealing to scavenger animals, so there was little chance it had been dropped by some hungry fox. The placement was deliberate. Someone had wanted it to be found, sooner or later. A number of funeral homes that associated with the Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association were contacted with pleas for information, and details of the bizarre case were even shared at a National Funeral Directors Association conference. But unsurprisingly, no one could shed any light of the gruesome situation. Every theory with the exception of grave robbery had been dismissed, with many agreeing that the most likely explanation is that the owner of the embalmed head had been a victim of the black market trade that deals in the illegal acquisition of human remains, either for professional or recreational purposes. There's a black market on body parts, and that market is pretty Attorney Anthony was reported to have said. Detectives have repeatedly stated that they believed the head may have been removed from the corpse of a natural cause death, or what's known as a body filter, an individual or firm who purchases and sells cadavers or remains. One solid reason that this line of investigation is thought to be the most plausible is because the black market cadaver industry had been linked to similar abuses in the past. Due to the plethora of firms where you can purchase human remains, any attempt to discover where the severed head came from is, according to Professor Michel Vitali, extremely hard to track. If the owner of the severed head is to ever be identified, it would almost certainly require the assistance of a dentist. The forensic investigation discovered that the owner of the severed head had work done on every single tooth, one of them as many as 7 times. On one of the 3 teeth that had been pulled, forensic dentists discovered a filling compound that wasn't available to dentists before 2004, indicating that the woman must have died after that particular year. So far, analysis of the woman's dental work had produced no leads, but with a forensic facial reconstruction, investigators still hope that someone, someday, will be able to identify the woman and give her name back. Almost 6 years later, we are still no closer to discovering the identity of whoever owned the embalmed head, or that of the sick individual who had severed or stolen it by replacing the eyeballs with red rubber balls. It might well remain a total mystery who exactly placed the head in the woods out in Pennsylvania. But perhaps the real question is, do we really want to know the whole story behind it? Or are we most likely able to sleep easier, remaining in blissful ignorance? In 2004, in the sleepy Chicago suburb of Aurora, Illinois, Amy Pitson would give birth to her firstborn son. After some deliberation, she and her husband James would name the boy Timothy. The first 6 years of the boy's life were happy and uneventful, and we have every reason to believe that he was loved and well looked after by his 2 young parents. He had an extensive collection of relatives that he visited regularly, who cared for the boy just as much as his own parents did. But Timothy and his family were headed towards a tragedy that would confound and puzzle all that became familiar with it. A mystery that would remain unsolved even to this day. On the morning of May 11th, 2011, James Pitson woke up, made breakfast for himself and his son, and then drove the boy to his kindergarten class over at Greenman Elementary School on West Galena Boulevard before he headed to work. But for some reason, a short while later, just after 8 a.m., Amy Pitson arrived at the school, telling a member of the teaching staff that there was a family emergency and that she needed to take Timothy out of school for the day. Timothy's kindergarten teacher naturally obliged his mother, letting the young boy out of class to accompany her wherever she was headed, after wishing her the best with whatever emergency she was dealing with. However, instead of dealing with this apparent family emergency, Amy Pitson's whereabouts are unknown until around 10 a.m. that same morning, when she arrived at a vehicle repair shop in Aurora. A friendly employee of the shop then drove Pitson and her son over to the nearby Brookfield Zoo, where the pair then spent the remainder of the morning and the early afternoon relaxing and exploring the various animal exhibits that were on display there. At around 3 p.m., Amy and her son arrived back at the vehicle repair shop, collecting her car before driving over to the Key Lime Cove Resort in the small town of Gurnee, over in Lake County, which is known for its large water park, as well as being a subsidiary of Six Flags. After taking Timothy around the water park, Amy and her son spent the night at the resort, leaving early the next morning before driving over state lines to Wisconsin. Here they checked into Kalahari Resort in the Wisconsin Dells at around 10 a.m., both being recorded on CCTV cameras. But since then, neither hide nor hair of Timothy Pitson has been seen anywhere. For all intents and purposes, the young man had vanished into thin air. Around lunchtime the following day, on May 13th, Amy Pitson made a series of phone calls to some of her relatives, including her brother-in-law and her mother. She assured them that they were not to worry, how she and Timothy were both safe and well, and that neither of them were in any danger. These relatives would later confirm that Timothy was indeed present with his mother at the time of these calls, since he could be heard in the background, complaining that he was hungry. In the investigation that followed, cell phone records showed that the calls were made from an area close to Sterling, in Vernon County, Wisconsin, and that the pair were apparently on the move again, via Route 40. Yet contrary to what one might expect, Amy Pitson did not contact her husband, the one person you might assume she would call to inform of her and her son's whereabouts. James had been frantic with worry ever since the evening of May 11th, when he had returned home to find the house empty, and had subsequently heard the news that his wife had taken Timothy out of school. On the evening of May 13th, Amy Pitson was recorded on the security cameras of a Winnebago family dollar store. She was alone when she purchased a notebook, some stationery, and some envelopes. She was still all on her own when she was sighted at a branch of Sullivan's Food, also in Winnebago, Wisconsin, where she apparently visited the pharmacy counter before swiftly leaving. She was not spotted again until just past 11 that night, when she had apparently returned to Illinois, checking into a room at the Rockford Inn in the city of Rockford. The following day, in the early afternoon of May 14th, a member of the housekeeping staff at the inn visited the room that Amy Pitson was staying in, with the intention of cleaning the room. There was no "Do Not Disturb" sign present on the door handle, and when the housekeeper knocked, there was no reply from inside the room. So, against her better judgment, she unlocked the room and walked inside. There, to her absolute horror, she found Amy Pitson lying face up on the sheets that were soaked with blood. Pitson had taken an overdose of powerful antihistamines before slashing her own wrists. She had also apparently left a note on a nearby dresser, stating that she was well and truly sorry for the mess she had caused, but that Timothy would never be found. However, the note was quick to reassure those that read it that Timothy was in fact safe, with people who would care for him, but that it would be pointless to look for him, since his new guardians had hidden him away and would never give him up. After being called, police quickly arrived on the scene to shut off the hotel room for forensic examination. They located the knife that Amy Pitson used, and a close inspection of her car found traces of what appeared to be an alarming amount of her son's blood. Yet upon analysis, only Amy's blood was to be found on the knife at the scene. To the relief of investigators, close relatives of the Pitsons revealed that in the run-up to Timothy's disappearance, he had suffered a rather large nosebleed in the car, and this was why so many trace particles could be found inside the vehicle. Amy Pitson's cell phone was nowhere to be found at the scene of her death, but it was later found in a grassy verge on the edge of Route 78, evidently tossed out of the window of her moving vehicle as she returned to Illinois. But analysis of her cell phone records shed no further light on what she had done, nor why she had done it, and there were no clues regarding her son's whereabouts to be found. Furthermore, the analysis of Amy's vehicle revealed that at some point she had been parked in a grassy area. There were traces of clay embedded in the vehicle's tires, which investigators surmised had come from a place with a stream or a river nearby. Thus, it was highly possible that Amy had driven into a rural area, possibly off the road, in order to hand Timothy over to his new keepers. Pitson has since made it abundantly clear that he believed that his son is still very much alive, and in August of 2018, the since-canceled law enforcement TV show, Live PD, showed their viewers some digitally generated age progression images showing what Timothy might look like at age 13. The guest on that episode of the show was Angeline Hartman of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who urged members of the public to come forward with any and all information that might help police locate Timothy. But none of the calls that were made as a result came to anything at all, However, less than a year later, calls were made to police in northern Kentucky that brought a phenomenal amount of hope to those who wished for Timothy's return, but also revealed an unfathomable mystery and an unimaginable evil. On the 3rd of April 2019, citizens in the city of Newport called local police to inform them that a teenage boy was wandering in nearby streets, apparently in a daze, after having run across a bridge on the Ohio River. Police soon located the young man, who was shaken, distraught, and exhausted, and who required a great deal of consoling before he could even bring himself to speak. Police asked the teenager for his name, and his reply shook them to their core. Timothy, he stammered. Timothy Pitson. The boy was rushed to Louisville, Kentucky's largest city, where he was interviewed by detectives regarding his apparent disappearance 8 years previously. He said he couldn't remember a thing, that the most he could recall was escaping a house in neighboring Ohio before running across the river bridge. But DNA tests would reveal something that was devastatingly disappointing to James Pitson, who was indescribably overjoyed at the sudden breakthrough in the case. The boy was not Timothy Pitson. The entire story was an intricate lie, fabricated by then 23-year-old Brian Michael Reaney. Reaney has been released from Belmont Correctional Institution in Ohio, just shy of a month prior to his terrible claims. He had served just 14 months on charges of burglary and vandalism, resulting from acts committed in Medina County. Sergeant Bill Rowley, spokesman for Aurora Police, later released a statement saying, "Although we are disappointed that this turned out to be a hoax, we remain diligent in our search for Timothy, as our missing persons case remains unsolved." One cannot possibly imagine what would have possessed Brian Michael Reaney to tell such a heinous and evil lie. It is possible that he had seen an episode of Live PD, or somehow heard of Timothy's disappearance whilst incarcerated, and wished to hit back at a world that he viewed with what must be a remarkable degree of contempt. But either way, Timothy Pitson remains missing to this day, and there have been no sightings of the boy since the day he suddenly disappeared at the hands of his mother. However, no bodies have been found, not even a drop of blood that wasn't easily explainable, so it is entirely possible that he is still out there, somewhere in the United States, just waiting to be found. I'm only 23, and I'm a very social person, so I've seen a lot of things, and I've encountered many strange people. But this experience may have been one of the most frightening and unsettling encounters of my life. This happened in the late summer dark of 2021. It was mid-September, so the school year had just started. I was a senior in college, and my group of friends and I decided we wanted to go camping. Not overnight camping. We just wanted to go out in the warm night and sit around a fire in the woods, make s'mores, chill, and maybe have some drinks. One of my friends, who was a girl, Landry, had come up with the idea to do this after classes were over that Friday. Landry brought some of her friends, Gracie and Lily. I asked my two roommates, Wyatt and Marshall, if they wanted to come. They both agreed. So there were 6 of us in total, 3 girls and 3 boys. We were all just college friends having a good old time. We had all been out there for maybe 30 minutes when I heard footsteps in the woods. As soon as I heard the footsteps, everyone else must have heard them too. All of the talking around the campfire turned to silence. I think the reason it startled everyone was because of 2 reasons. 1, because the footsteps were heavy, and it was unmistakably something much larger than a small game animal like a squirrel or a rabbit. And 2, because it was clearly not a deer or another 4-legged animal because of the frequency of the footsteps. The footsteps were hitting the leaves one at a time. If it was a deer, There would be simultaneous thuds on the ground, indicating a creature with four legs. Given the way the leaves were crunching one step at a time, it couldn't be anything but something large that was traveling on two legs. Suddenly, there was a thud on the ground about 30 yards away from us, as if whatever was moving through the woods had fallen. The footsteps had now stopped. We knew whatever it was had to still be in the woods near us, just stagnant. Needless to say, we all had our guard up now. The strong, unsettling feeling of being watched soon got the best of us, so we all agreed to just take our things and quickly leave. As soon as we all started to get up, we heard a voice from the woods in that same direction yell in a creepy, friendly tone. It was a man's voice, and he said something along the lines of, "Hey, where are you guys going?" The girls immediately started running back to the truck without getting their stuff, which was maybe 100 yards away. I wasn't really scared, but I definitely knew something wasn't right. Wyatt was obviously flustered, but he was trying to hide it. He grabbed his stuff and started to walk back without saying a word. Meanwhile, Marshall called back to whoever was in the woods. He said something along the lines of, "What do you mean?" Or something stupid like that. We were the only two people still within earshot of the man in the woods now. Marshall was toying with danger, and we both knew it. The man replied with something along the lines of, "I'm stuck in the woods and I need help." Marshall was kind of being a jerk and said something like, "How could you be stuck in the woods? Did you get caught in a bear trap?" After there was no answer, Marshall said that he had got him. Marshall and I grabbed the girl's stuff and started toward the truck. I remember walking back thinking that Marshall is an idiot for doing that. As Marshall and I were approaching the truck, I looked at my phone and had some missed calls from Landry. I found out why as soon as we got back in the truck, when Wyatt and the girls simultaneously started trying to tell me and Marshall about how they saw multiple tall silhouettes walking near the tree line in the moonlight. They explained how the shadow outlines were walking in the direction of where we had set up camp. We obviously didn't think they were lying after the exchange Marshall just had with the guy in the woods. Immediately following, we promptly booked it out of that place. In retrospect, it could have been some guys just playing games out in the woods. But more realistically, it was probably some sort of gang or cult or something like that. I'm just glad we were so lucky to get out of there when we did. Or who knows what could have happened. When I was a young boy, I always had a lot of trouble falling asleep at night. I would lie awake, my mind racing with anxiety. It would get so bad that I would carry my pillow and blanket around the house and see if I could maybe sleep better in the living room, or sometimes even on my parents' bedroom floor. Looking back, this is pretty embarrassing, but there's a reason I mention it. Every so often, I would stay at my Nana's house with my younger brother. It was a three-story duplex in one of those gated seniors communities that spring up in residential areas surrounding hospitals. When I was 8, my grandfather passed away from cancer at the hospital right around the corner. Since then, my Nana has always lived alone. Even still, I remember enjoying spending time there, eating lots of food, playing video games, watching lots of VHS-taped shows about alien encounters and ghostly hauntings. That's where I got my thrills. That being said, I've always considered myself skeptical to the paranormal. However, something happened one of those nights at my Nana's house that to this day, over a decade later, I still cannot explain. On this particular night, it was only me staying over at Nana's house. The upstairs floor of her three-story duplex consisted of 2 bedrooms, a large master bedroom, and right across the hallway was another smaller bedroom. Most nights when I stayed over with my younger brother, we would both sleep in the smaller bedroom. But there was always something a little creepy about that bedroom, and on the night I decided I won't be sleeping alone in that room. Instead, I'll just take a pillow and blankets and sleep on the floor in my Nana's master bedroom. My family was used to my strange sleeping habits, so it was no problem. I made my bed on the floor, in between the door and the queen-sized bed that furnished the master bedroom, and swiftly fell asleep. I woke up tossing and turning in the middle of the night. It must have been in the very early AM hours. The room was very dark. To my right is the large bed where my Nana lay sleeping. To my left is the bedroom door, left ajar only slightly. I can hear my Nana sleeping in her bed, the soft inhale and exhale of someone in a deep sleep. And then a troubling realization takes hold of me. I notice that hers isn't the only pattern of breathing that I can hear. To my left, in the direction of the hallway, and the room directly across the hall, I can hear a completely separate inhale and exhale. It sounded as though someone was standing right outside the bedroom door, breathing loudly. I can remember thinking to myself, am I just imagining this, or am I hearing myself? I remember holding my breath and listening, and then guaranteed myself that I was hearing two different people breathing. It was easy to tell because the breathing sounds were on opposite sides of me. It continued for at least a full minute, and the more I paid attention to it, the more terrified I became. In the moment, I pulled my blanket over my head and convinced myself that maybe for some reason, one of my other relatives had shown up and needed to crash in her guest bedroom. Somehow, I eventually fell back asleep. The next morning, sitting down at a stack of pancakes, I asked my Nana if anyone had been over last night. She told me no, and asked me why I asked, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her what I had experienced the night before. Being in a gated community, she would have had to buzz through any visitors that arrived. That's the one and only time I've ever experienced something that I just cannot explain. When I was in college, I worked the night shift one summer vacation. I was 19 years old and an average-looking female. I wasn't enthused about having to work a job over the summer, but it was the only way I was going to be able to afford tuition. Working night shift was probably the weirdest experience of my life. It was at the McDonald's drive-thru. I still remember my first night on the job. This lady came in and was talking to someone while she was waiting for us to take her order. She sounded extremely upset, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs. It sounded like it was directed at someone in the back seat. I immediately assumed that she was abusing her children. I'm a psychology major, so I naturally pick up on stuff like that. She ordered 3 Big Macs and 3 large Cokes. My intuition has been wrong. When she pulled up to pay for her meal, she was completely alone. I was honestly a little startled. Why would this lady be here ordering this much food and screaming in her car if she was alone? I couldn't wrap my head around the situation. She was otherwise polite. She was nice as she spoke to me and paid for her food and left. She even told me to have a good night. She had been the only customer we had in a probably 45-minute window. And after she left, I saw some of my coworkers laughing at me. I asked, "What's so funny?" And he told me that it was my first encounter with Schizo Susan. They told me that she regularly did stuff like this, and always showed up at all hours of the night to order seemingly too much food. She was always yelling at people in her car, but there was never anyone actually in her car. They didn't actually know her name, so they just started calling her Schizo Susan. They told me that there were occasional nights when she was the only customer to come through the drive-thru at all. I found it extremely unnerving. I immediately started wondering what was wrong with this woman. About a week went by. She came in every night, just like they said, and in between speaking to me to order her food and picking up her food, she was always yelling at someone. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was up. So I formulated a plan. I was just going to ask her who she was speaking to. You know, play it off like I thought she was talking to me. It was the best I could come up with without seeming abrasive. I remember it being a Friday night when I decided I was going to do it. I had chickened out a couple of times, but I figured that since I don't work the weekends, may as well try something new to end my last shift for the week. Well, the night that I did it, I listened in to her screaming for a few more seconds than I normally did. You see, I can listen to what people are saying through the McDonald's speaker without them necessarily knowing that I'm listening. If I don't say anything, they would never know. I normally never did this because it's kind of frowned upon. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of rule against it. But I listened for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. I listened for long enough to know that she was yelling at someone named Darian. When she was in the middle of saying something, I interrupted her and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, were you speaking to me?" She just replied, "No." Crap, I thought to myself. I knew that I had to try something else. I asked her if Darian would be ordering with her. Then she went silent. It wasn't an entire minute, but she didn't say anything. After the second time of asking her if she was still there, she let out a banshee scream. It was the loudest thing I have ever heard in my life. It really hurt my ears. The McDonald's microphone system is already pretty loud, but when someone screams into it, trust me when I say that it is the most unbearable thing you have ever experienced. I was also surprised at how long she screamed. She had one deep, loud, guttural scream going for like 30 entire seconds. In the moment, though, I was scared for my life. I also got really worried that I was going to lose my job. I felt really guilty for asking, like it was my fault for setting her off. In retrospect, I don't think I really did anything horrible to her. Literally just asked her if the person whose name she was screaming just a minute ago was also going to be ordering food. She didn't actually say anything when she screamed. It was just kind of a violent and guttural screaming. I was really taken aback there for a minute. How the heck do you even respond to that? I asked her if she wanted to continue placing her order, and that's when she just drove away. She really floored it and drove way faster than she should have. And as she drove by, I saw her face looking at me through the window. It must have been only a split second that I could see her, but I got that one really good look at her. She looked extremely distressed, and as if things couldn't get any weirder, the microphone system stopped working correctly the rest of the night. I think she screamed loud enough to break something in it. That was hands down the weirdest thing to ever happen to me throughout any jobs I've ever worked. And this weird lady just disappeared after that. She stopped coming to McDonald's altogether. I asked some of my other coworkers how long she had been stopping by for her nightly visits, and they all said that it was for as long as they can remember, which probably meant at least a year. I felt somewhat guilty for pissing this lady off so bad, but I think it is safe to say she probably needs some serious mental help. I haven't worked at McDonald's in a long time, and I don't ever plan on working fast food again. I just hope that wherever that lady ended up, she got the help that she so desperately and obviously needed. The other day, I remember this one little story that happened to one of my friend's old neighbors. His old neighbor lived in a really small RV park. Anyway, he liked to go back there to visit her a lot, since they were pretty close. I was his ride at the time, so I would usually end up hanging out there with them. The small RV park was located right off a main road and a highway that led directly into one of our small, historic townships. The park was shaded by mostly tall oak trees, so it was often nice and breezy in the hot summers. Since it was such a small neighborhood in the RV park, everyone had no choice but to know everyone. While we were hanging out there one day, my friend's former neighbor and her other neighbor started commenting on the fact that there were tons of ants. That was unusual to them, since they lived there for years and never had that problem before. Eventually, after dealing with the ants being absolutely everywhere for a couple days, my friend's old neighbor decided to go outside and try to track the ant trails to see where they may be coming from. She ended up tracking them to an RV that was one space away from hers. There, she found several trails of them both going into and coming from this man's RV. Everyone in the little neighborhood knew that the man who lived in that RV was somewhat of a hoarder, and he was not clean at all. So, she knocked on his door a few times, but he didn't seem to be there, so she decided to tape a note to his door for when he got home. In the note, she asked that he please have his son maybe pick up some ant traps, and also to have him maybe clean up a little. The man who lived there was quite weak and ill with MRSA. I believe MRSA is a disease that can be passed through bodily fluids and such, and I also believe it is eventually fatal. Thankfully, though, he had his son around to do his errands and some other things to help care for him. A couple days after she had left the note on his door, she got a knock on her door, and it was the man's son. What he had to say was the grossest and most horrifying thing I have heard. What had happened was that when the man's son came by to take his dad to an appointment, he knocked, but didn't get an answer. As he was waiting for his dad to answer the door, he realized he hadn't heard from him in almost a week. I guess his dad usually called him at least every other day or so. Since his dad wasn't answering him, his son went to go grab the spare key that his dad had given to him previously. When he let himself into his dad's RV, he made a morbid and terrifying discovery. He found his dad's decomposing body still in his bed, totally covered in ants. He ran out of there, and it didn't take long for a neighbor to find him sobbing next to his vehicle. Within minutes, the whole small community had heard the gruesome news. As it just so happened, I had taken my friend over there for us to all hang out again on the day his old neighbor had heard the terrible news. We didn't even get a chance to sit down before she was already telling us about it. As she was telling us about all the ants on his body, I just couldn't help but to think about how ants come into your house, crawl all over your sinks, counters, and dishes, and even in your food. So, for whatever reason, the ants were truly the most horrific part to me. After all, MRSA can be passed through bodily fluids. We didn't go back there for a while after hearing that. When we did, though, they were still in the process of trying to move the RV out of there, and that was after a man in a full hazmat suit spent days cleaning it out. The whole thing just kind of freaked us all out, though, especially the ants. During the mid-19th century, the United States saw a sharp rise in the number of people who chose to leave their homes in the East to resettle into California or the newly acquired Oregon territories. For many, a new life in California meant freedom from financial servitude, or freedom to practice their own particular brand of Christianity without judgment from their peers back east. Others were attracted to the West's new and exciting economic opportunities, or inspired by the idea of manifest destiny. But for one group of migrants, their pursuit of the American dream would quickly turn into a nightmare. One characterized by isolated mountain passes, freezing cold, and stomach-twisting hunger. In the spring of 1842, a wagon train that was almost 500 strong headed out from Independence, Missouri, seeking to follow an established trail that would lead them to the promised land of California. Taking their place at the rear of the wagon train was a group of 9 wagons containing 32 members of the Reed and Donner families. The family patriarch, George Donner, had spent time in a number of eastern states before finally making the decision to move his family west. At first, heavy traffic on the trails leading eastward, as well as the large number of other travelers, meant that the journey is relatively easy. Traveling in the summer months could be hot and tiresome, but it paled in comparison with how difficult navigation during the winter would be. It was essential that the wagon train make as much ground as possible, while it was still possible. For winter was coming, and it would not be merciful. By the end of September 1842, an attempt at a shortcut had gone terribly wrong for the Donner-Reed families. Seeking to overtake the Sierra Nevada mountains before the winter arrived, they had successfully traversed the Great Salt Lake Desert. But complications meant that they had in fact slowed themselves down by about a month. Lack of water in the harsh, dry desert had driven the party to near madness and caused casualties among its essential accompaniment of oxen and other cattle. Tensions among the party members were reaching breaking points. In the following month of October, many of wagons that made up the original party had gone their separate ways, either pushing on towards California or making their way back eastward. In the group that remained, 2 wagons became entangled, and a man by the name of John Snyder attempted to remedy the situation. He lacked patience and soon began mercilessly whipping one of the oxen. Soon, James Reed, the oldest and most senior member of the Reed family, attempted to intervene to stop the beating. But Snyder reacted furiously to the intervention and turned the whip in his hand towards Reed. A physical altercation ensued, one that was only ended when James Reed took out a long steel bowie knife and plunged it into Snyder's chest. Despite Reed's explanation of self-defense, the party members convened to decide his punishment. United States laws were not applicable west of the Continental Divide in what was then Mexican territory, and wagon trains often dispensed their own justice. Some suggested that Reed should hang for his crimes, but it was eventually decided that he should merely be banished from the wagon train, but on pain of death should he attempt to return. What was once a happy adventure into the West had become a vicious fight for survival. Grass was becoming scarce, and the animals were steadily weakening. To relieve the animals' load, everyone was expected to walk. The trials that the Donner Party had so far endured resulted in splintered groups, each looking out for themselves and distrustful of the others. In one incident of abject cruelty, an elderly man was ejected from the wagon he was reliant on for transport, being told that he had to walk or die. A few days later, the elderly man sat next to a stream, his feet so swollen they had split open. Some members of the party begged the others to wait for him, to show mercy to the party's weakest members, but the others refused, thinking only of themselves. The old man was not seen again. In the following weeks, attacks from the local Paiute Indian tribe were responsible for the party losing almost 40 of their cattle. This is extremely shocking for a number of reasons. Firstly, the Paiute tribe had first appeared friendly to the migrants, sharing supplies with them and even directing them onto trails that would take them westward. But at some point, the relationship had soured, and the people known for their respect and reverence of the natural world appeared to have no problem slaughtering the wagon train's animal accompaniment in an attempt to slow down or even stop the party dead in their tracks. With nearly all the cattle gone, one particular party member stopped to bury his wagon for safekeeping. Two of his number stayed with him to help, but they returned without him, reporting they had been attacked by Paiutes, murdered, and scalped. By the end of October, the party was forced to make camp around Truckee Lake in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains. 3 widely separated cabins of pine logs served as their homes, with dirt floors and poorly constructed flat roofs that leaked when it rained. Of the 60 at Truckee Lake, 19 were men over 18 years old, 12 were women, and 29 were children, 6 of whom were toddlers or younger. Very little food remained in their supplies, and the oxen began to die. Their carcasses were frozen and stacked. Truckee Lake was not yet iced over, but the pioneers were unfamiliar with catching lake trout. The most experienced hunter among them killed a bear, but had little luck after that. Margaret Reed promised to pay double when they got to California for the use of 3 oxen from other families. She was charged $25, normally the cost of 2 healthy oxen, for the carcass of a single ox that had starved to death. The mood in the camp was beyond tense. People were only looking out for themselves by this point, but an incoming blizzard would be the straw that broke the mules' back. During the height of the snowstorm, a man named Patrick Dolan began to rant deliriously, stripped off his clothes, and ran into the woods. He returned shortly afterwards and died a few hours later. Not long after, some of the group began to eat flesh from Dolan's body. The next morning, the group stripped the muscle and organs from Dolan's body, then dried them to store for the days ahead, taking care to ensure nobody would have to eat his or her relatives. As the days went by, more and more of the party succumbed to their desperate hunger and made the decision to consume human flesh. Some were determined to continue hunting and fishing, only turning to cannibalism when there was no other option. But it appeared some preferred the taste of human flesh and eschewed the long and tiring hunting trips in favor of consuming those who died of disease and malnutrition. At one point, a scouting party, looking for the most efficient way ahead, came across 2 Miwok Indians named Luis and Salvador. They had once been party members, but had attempted to move on when the supplies had run low. At the time they were discovered, they had not eaten anything for 9 whole days, and were dangerously undernourished and weakened as a result. However, instead of attempting to rescue and save the lives of their Indian friends, one of the scouting parties simply shot them there and then before carving off chunks of their flesh with a hunting knife. On January 12th, the group stumbled into a Miwok camp looking so deteriorated that the camp's inhabitants initially fled, fearing them to be the spirits of undead souls who wandered the snow-capped mountain range. Once it was clear that they were in fact the survivors of a disastrous expedition, the Miwoks gave them what they had to eat: acorns, grass, and pine nuts, completely unaware that the group had murdered and eaten 2 starving members of their tribe. They were shaken, starving, and had arguably sold their souls to stay alive. But they were safe now. Relatively safe, anyway. Reporting on the event across the U.S. was heavily influenced by the national enthusiasm for westward migration. In some papers, news of the tragedy was buried in small paragraphs, despite the contemporary tendency to sensationalize stories. Several newspapers, including those in California, wrote about the cannibalism in graphic, exaggerated detail. In some print accounts, the members of the Donner Party were depicted as heroes, and California a paradise worthy of significant sacrifices. But it seems that sacrificing one's family and friends, as well as losing one's humanity through consuming human flesh, might not be worth any prize, no matter how great. As a a young child, I had a very active imagination. As an adult, I am very skeptical about ghosts and the paranormal. But as a 7-year-old child in the early 90s, I remember seeing and witnessing stuff which a rational mind would conclude to be impossible. Regardless, I remember such events. In some instances, I was with other individuals who too shared my experiences of these paranormal sightings, who also have profound memories of them to this day. In the 90s, my family owned a small village pub called the Crown Inn. The establishment is situated in the English countryside. Like many public houses in England, the Crown Inn was very old and at the center of many tragic stories, including murder. I would spend many hours exploring the Victorian building whilst my brother played with his friends in the village, and when my parents worked. I would often spend a lot of time by myself in the upstairs flat, and during these times, I recall witnessing objects flying across the room, furniture hovering feet off the ground, and other such occurrences. I would convince myself that these were just simply hallucinations or my excitable imagination. However, the family dog would also react to these unexplained events. On one occasion, Jake, my black Labrador, bolted out of the bedroom with his tail between his legs when a table lifted off the ground. He ran to the bottom of the stairs and urinated all over the carpet. During this time, I was sure that we were not alone in the pub. I will detail one particular night that sits vividly in my mind, which I catch myself pondering about to this day. It was late at night. The pub was closed down and everybody in the building was in bed, asleep. At this time, I shared a bedroom with my brother and also shared a double bed. I remember waking up in the dark and silent room. Only a slight bit of light spilled through the window from the street, very faintly illuminating items around me. I first focused on my brother, who was sound asleep just a few feet to my left. Still laying on my back, I turned my head the other way, and as I was about to close my eyes, something caught my attention. On the wall to my right-hand side, adjacent to the bed, and slightly raised towards the ceiling, was something I couldn't at all comprehend. There were no pictures, paintings, or any items hanging from this particular wall, and apart from the window, the wall was completely bare, except of course this strange thing. Being intrigued of this item fully aroused my attention, and I must have gazed at this object for what felt to be a few minutes. The item was almost egg-shaped, no larger than an American football. Then I felt my heart starting to beat faster, and a cold sensation ran down the length of my spine as I started to slowly understand what I was looking at. The light reflected off the object to make out what appeared to be a cheekbone. As soon as I recognized this, I could make out a masculine jawline, an ear, a nose, and a mouth. I was completely frozen when it was
Kas?
Aš iš tikrųjų džiaugčiausi, jeigu ant surastų mano adresą ir atvažiuotų.
Kas? Pie gero virsilos jungijas.
Nieko, kročiai, va, buvau, jau galvojau priskilp ant internetinio laido, blėt. Ant interneto laidą galvojau pasikarti, nes internetas toks dušovas yra, va, žiūrėk. LAN laidas. Bet kur pasigailėjau, nes atsigavo internetas vis dėlto.
Kol dar livo miegant.
Darau laivą, kai miegu, kai viską dirbu.
Virsilai deformavęs kairys kiausis. Nenuobodu tau kinarim.
Ne, mes kročiai žaidžiam telefoninius žaidimus primėti. Tuo tarpu, ką aš padarysiu?
Blyt. Mačiau.
Aš pasiimsiu krautis powerbanką. Blet, man apšoko nosies vidus. Ir jo.
Kur alus?
Nėra laus, nėra. Nebegeriu laus. Jokio laus, jokių alkoholinių gėrimų. Mečiau rūkyti. Snusų irgi beveik nebevartoju, primetat.
Blogai.
Ne, tai... Man deformavus vieną rankų nuo dročinimo. Šitą? Ne, kodėl šitą? Ką žinau. Niekada nebūdavau su tokia maikė ir aš labai didžiuojas, kaip aš atrodau. Neatrodau kaip kaulas.
Kurva masyvi, dik. Kok nerokai negeri mergų, neturi pizdat sventas. Sveikas, balandį. Kaip įsilaikęs?
Žiūri gerai įsilaikęs. Žiūri gerai įsilaikęs. Rokas, dėkui. Bet va, pasigirsiu, pagaliau su tokia va maikė galiu kimarinti. Kai jau svėriu 60 kg jau atrodau normaliai, o ne kai buvau numetęs svorio dapuje, kai kelionė aplink ežerus darėm.
Pasietas Insilas su savo krantos ken bara tave.
Bara, bet nieko neišeina. Rokas, dėkui.
Ne,
nebėgiau. Šiandien dariau atsispaudimus, bet dabar jaučiu, užsimesiu paprikolų kokį kepurę, darom 5 atsispaudimus, nes reikia man prasijudinti biškį. Bet taip tai... Ką, pydis, jaučiu, padirbau šiandien.
Taigi sakė, anksti kelsies bėgiot.
Ne, bėgiot aš bėgiot nebėgios. Kardio pašol nahui. Bet šiandien atsispaudimai, rytoj, atsispaudimai plus krūtinė. Rytoj atsilenkimai, o poryt pritupimai. Nors nežinau, ar man reikėtų pritupimų, vis tiek, kuo jie yra didesnė negu. Ačiū. O gal reikia man...
Insilos kojų programa ink bus zips.
Ne.
Prieš atsispaudimus guminukas Insilo įpis virkai imunitetas. Turniką pasidaryk.
Aš galvoju, rytoj kontentų sugalvau pasidarysim iš kaladžių, nu kaip gyras, kažkas panašaus, hantelius. Nežinau kaip vadinasi, sorry. Pasiimsim, pasisversim, kiek sveria. Iš kaladžių pasidarysim kažką.
Stanga.
Ne štanga. Nu, kaip gyra. Kažkas panašaus, nu, bet ta prasme ambickės. Ambickės, karočią varyt pasidarysim. Tik reikės man susirasti su kuo metalą nusipirkti.
Daryk turniką įsnes nugarą.
Plemba, jo. Mes galim turniką pasidaryti rytoj. Išsikas duobę, aš medienos turiu. Metalinę štangą susirasti. Pasidarysim šiokį tokį turniką. Masalapą, nežinau, ar be padirbčiau masalapą. Anksčiau padarydavau 5, kaip niekur nieko.
Turnikas zbis.
Jo.
Duobėj turnikas.
Ta prasme, duobėj. Ne, duobėj įsikasti, kad šonų susidėti, nes aš prie manęs čia prie pat nėra medžių. Kad galėčiau, žinai, medžius įsikalti. Tai reikėtų man medinius šonus, gerus, kad atlaikytų mane. Ir visi. Ir štangą per vidurį. Reikia teoriją įsilaikyti. Teorijai aš knygutę turiu. Knygutę reikia įkalti. Persiskaityti.
Kiek kainuoja teisės ir kokia masina galvoja?
20 kartų mažiausiai ir tada mėginti vieną kartą spręsti kietus. Ir jo. Kiek teisės kainuoja, aš nežinau, kiek dabar man reikės iš naujo mokyklinį laikyti. Pravažiavimus. 400. Man atrodo. Nes vairuoti.
Kol mane Kamil buvo pramutinus, negalėjau katinti.
Jo, čia buvo užko. Tai aš nežinau, kiek Lietuvoje teisės be kainuoja.
Kokią mašiną galvoji imti? Dėl guminukų, nu.
Kokią mašiną galvoji imti? Paprasčiausia. Pirmą mašiną paprasčiausia, kad... Nu, matai, mašina ir mašina, tada...
Apie 750 e.
Nesvaiko 750. Man mokyklinius jau daug.
Svarbu, kad važiuoja ta mašina.
Man pravažiavimus ir mokyklinį. Pravažiavimai ir viskas. Pirmą mašiną kokį golfą pasiimsiu, kad patvari būtų, kad toli nuvažiuoti ir viskas. Ir tada taupytis ant kitos. Bet reikia neįsisvajoti viskas. Negalim įsisvajoti, po pirmą mums reikia nors pirmą tikslą pasiekti, kad dar dovatonas nepasibaigtų.
Pilnos teisės iki 50 e. 500 e.
Ja, aš irgi sakau.
Ne viskas iš pirmų karto būna. Namą ant ratų. Nesenai laikiau kainą 380. Pirmai masinai svarbu, kad traukia ir kad pusę laiko mechaniniai sėdėtų.
Ne. Golfą po 4, blėt, pasiėmė ir poką. Ne, matai. Aš teoriją 2 kartus laikiau, bet aš nelabai mokinaus. 2 kartus laikiausi ir po vieną klausimą trūko, blėt. O dabar, kai prapisau viską, reikia alkoholiko kursus pirmą pereit. Pereinu kursus, teoriją
Oi,
pisu.
kiek aš jau sukišau, jau nebeskaičiuoju.
Visa.
Čia man rodos pagal kur laikai ir su kuo laikai tą kainą.
Jo.
Balandžius logelis.
Ačiū, Rakel. Nukramtysi tau, kai mėgos nukramtysi, aš tau kojas pirštus.
Miegosim kartu.
Ne. Tu nežinosi.
Darysi vėl miegodamas stream.
Jo, darysiu.
Kiek ten darai?
Aš? Neklaus geriau.
Tai nakui eik.
Ką tik nusikirpau
Kokie
kojas.
tu ten pasijungęs buvai visą naktį? Silpnas draskysi trokai.
Siaubo istorijas buvau pasijungęs. Aš klausausi naktį siaubo istorijų. Tipo,
Kiek laiko leiv jau darai?
mėnesį gal?
Ai,
Jo, kažkur mėnesį. Ne, man atrodo virš mėnesiaus. Blet, kur paskaitau aš tus komentarus, blet, pažvenginu.
kodė tavo repostai seniau depresiniai?
Tai jie visą laiką tokie
Tai
buvo.
miegi leiv įjungtas.
Jo, kai miego laivas įjungtas, bet gali mane žadinti žmonės.
Kodė depresija?
Ne, man tokia patinka, blet. Ką aš galiu padaryti? Geri vidosai.
Lekęs.
Tai nereikia. Viršila buvo atliekęs, tai kad jis net neatlieks, o jeigu ir atlieks, tai man
Vakar
pistauskas.
trukdžiau miegot.
Gali
O
būti.
priskelia.
Jo, prisikeliu. Dėl viršilos neklauskit, sakau.
Pirkai kojų programa.
Jeigu ir atvažiuos, karočią, tik įžengtų pas manęs į teritoriją, karočią, nors vieną koją, kur pasidaryčiau pinigą gerą.
Linknusios kojaits.
Kojų programą, bet.
Kirvį pasiimk. Su kirviu užkapok. O aš galiu įzengt.
Karočią, va, kojų programą, blei. Blei, biškai reikėtų prasivaikščioti. Gerai,
Kretino reikėtų tau viršilos. Kaulai.
jo, kaulai.
Blauzda kaip virsilos. Virsilos. Vienas koja kaip 2 virsilos. Ambulas. Guminukų reikia.
Jo, manau, kad reikia.
Kokybė tai kaip 2010 metų.
Tai čia 2010 metų, nu blemba. Turėčiau dar vieną kamerą, tą vieną telefoną pajungčiau normaliai. Bet žinot ką, aš einu dabar vištą ištraukti. Iš rūkyklos. Jau buvau ištraukęs, bet ji nebuvo dar rūkyta iki galo. Dabar biškį pakepinau. Tai duokit man porą sekundžių.
Sudegus jau bus.
Ne, nebus sudegus, nebus.
Uga čiaga.
Uga čia.
Miskis mus kartu.
Gimus kartu. Blet, aš nelabai galiu neštis jūs. Pala. Bent jau aš galiu. Bet jūs nieko negirdėsit.
Miskis.
Aš prisiminiau, kad dabar internetas normaliai veikia.
Viršilai per omnivanusius vysta.
Testas. Dabar sorry už duplikuotą garsą. Aš jums pasiimsiu su garsu.
Ar susitvarkė internetas?
Jo, susitvarkiau. Persidėjau modemą į kitą vietą. Net kompas tiek nebelagina. Gerai, sorry už duplikuotą garsą. Su koja duris atidariau. Čia karočią ta neiškepusi višta. Nežinau, koks tam garsas pas jūsų garsiai ar negarsiai. Nu, blet, jeigu dabar nebūsi iškepusi, tai aš būsiu bibi draskis, na.
Viskas ok. Yra koks jausmas gulėti makaronų vonio.
Tu nahai. O va čia vat biškį anglėjus, bet čia tik tai skūra. Dėl, karočią,
Atrodo.
dėl ko, kaip aš ką dirbu, blėt, aš galėjau kitur pasidėti.
Blėt, gerai.
Na, blėt, viskas lak.
Baltymai. Gerai, gerai.
Jūs net nesuprantat.
Skurstraski turėtų būt.
Va čia geriau nahai negu visokiausia. Geriau negu visokiausia guminukai jūsų nahai. Koks višta nahai.
Su jais užpėsim kečiupo. Jau pizda. Virsila už nugaros.
Vo.
Guminukai nieko įspūdingojas virsilos, jie laikrodžiai pas jį ir ten nezinis kur.
Tai ką manot? Ką manot?
Kas jie?
Čia vištiena.
Kupakabra.
Gerai, dabar. Galima šitą. Įt.
Belia kaip gerai.
Gerai. Vieną aš nunešiu močiutei. Vieną močiutei.
Viena gera sija.
Va šitą va močiutei nunešiu.
Kalba yra 40 žmonių.
Eik,
Kiek
na čia.
užkeik? Kaip skonis pasako?
Aš jumis labai sunkiai girdžiu, nes aš šitą pasiliksiu savo. Žiūrėkit, kokia sultinga.
You have just react level.
Jūs matot, kokia sultinga.
Geriau už bet kokį restoraną. Tu atsiuntė mane būna.
Ačiū už mane gana, jeigu atsiuntė. Ačiū.
Afigiet.
Kokia sultinga, jūs nebesvaikit. Lėkit jūs, na čia.
Skaniau kepta ar rūkyta vistiena.
Čia rūkyta ir pakepta. Rūkyta ir pakepta. Ble, palaukit. Nieko nematau. Netyčia išjungiau. Nematau nei kur spausti.
Nigan.
Tai va, okei. Tai kaip jums vištiena? Ačiū tau, bet to perliukai. Dėkui tau už mane gana. Ačiū tau. Ačiū.
Ledova. Good.
Gerai, dabar palaukit. Aš einu vieną nunešti močiutei. Perliukai, aš tave užrašysiu į sąrašą. Nesijaudink. Aš vis dar renku, kas met kepurės, o vėliau dirbsiu, atidirbsiu.
Galiu kaimo rokiski.
Dėkui.
Noriu. Virsila niukas.
Nespamink to
Kiek
pačio
nuatsitei
šūdo.
metu? Kiek laiko rūkiai?
6 valandas. 6 valandas rūkiau. Aiškiai, skuros nevalgysiu, bet skonis tai achujienas. Gerai, dabar jums padėsiu į kitą vietą.
Tu. Kiek močiutei metų?
Ne, aš nežinau. Laimingi žmonės laiko neskaičiuoja. Ir ne taip.
Graži.
Aš visą dieną laukiu, kol galėsiu tą vištą valgyti. Iš antro sykio pavyko.
Koldūnų skonios nusai.
Palaukit, pamėginsiu dar kečupaus. Biškelį kečupaus. Čia va.
Koks ten gerims?
Čia? Čia yra tas visas vyšnių sultis.
Dabar laimingas balandis bus paėdys. Įskapus.
Seniai ne tas žodis. Mes su močiute paragavom, nunešiu močiutę ir paragavom krūtinėlės. Nu, tipo vištos krūties. Tokia skani buvo. Tokia sultinga. Gaila, kad man tik vieną kartą taip išeina padaryti. Į ranką vos neįsikandau.
Kiek teisės dobeltė kainuoja, kad pilnai įsilaikytum?
Negaliu pasakyti.
Užmigs su smailu balandis daug.
Kur neįdročint nereik? Mėsą nuo...
Zuvi bandęs rūkyt.
Ne dar.
Labas.
Mėsą tiesiog nuo kaulų krenta. Sultis bėga.
Sakniu. Slanaus.
Dėkui.
Kaip marinavau.
Tiesiog vištienos prieskonių uždėjau ir biškį, o visą kitą malkų sumarinavau.
Paimk su ranka ir valgyk.
Ne, čia ne makaronai. Čia ne makaronai. Kad galėčiau su ranka valgyti. Čia ir. Lėtas kūro. Lemba reikia kitas iki, kai sudysiu. Nesūdysiu, o darysiu visą šitą. Reikės įdėti į pėtkelnį moterišką. Tada neužsideda tos nesąmonės. Pažiūrėkit kokią krūtinėlę.
Duskit su tais versilos guminukams.
Žiūrėkit kokią krūtinėlę. Kokią šlapį.
Nemu.
Geriau už visokius guminukus nako. Nu čia tai maistas. Geriau išleisti 25... Ar išleisti 25 eurus ant guminukų, ar išleisti 5 eurus ant vienos vištos, blėt, ir išsikepti, no. Sveikas, Nierka. Nierka, tu...
Kaip su Virsila baigėsi, ar padavė į teismą?
Ne. Nierka, tu pažiūrėk. Įsirūkiau.
Ant vistos.
Įsirūkiau vištą. Taip skaniai dar ne...
Skavus guminukus.
Taip skaniai nebuvau įsirūkęs. Čia čistai visą vištą. O! Ne, karoč, nečiltų. Neturiu žodžių.
Uga čiaga.
Uga čiaga.
Malacius tobulėji.
Oi. Tokia šlapi krūtinėlė. Norėčiau, kad paragautum. Dėkui.
Dar močiutė neniek.
Jau beveik mėgo. Nunešiau pusę. Nu, na čia. Pasmauk džasį, bet lūk šiandien. Būsi laimingiausias žmogus pasaulyje.
Ar nepyksta dėl garso? Ar negirdi?
Negirdi. Debesėlis, dėkui. Ne, man reikia dar video pabaigti filmuoti, blėt. Pamiršau, įsijaučiau, aš čia filmavau. Ir nepabaigiau. Ir tik to, kai kelsiu.
Atseit galvoju apie tos bomstukus.
Sako, nu nesveikas jis. Gerai. Tuoj. Nu čia va jau biškį įsijaučiu, bet žiūrėkit.
Tiesa, sakė eks.
Dėkui iš dovanėlės. Dėkui, tęsim davatono. Išrūkyta belia kaip skaniai.
Ata debesėlis 420 just react level. 2.
Debesėlis, dėkui tau.
Zoom video.
Gerai, dabar CapCut pasijungsiu.
Fibe on top.
Tai va, ieško merginos, kuri eksperimentuotų mano kepimus. Keptų skaniau negu panas. Gali būti graži, bet gali ir nemokėti kepti. Priims.
Kiek moki?
Nemok.
Gives da.
Gives.
Sveikas, balandį.
Sveikas.
Mano akis baig. Kamera tai 2009.
Aš žinau, man nieko nesakykit. Aš žinau dėl kamerų viską. Mes negerinam streamo kokybės, mes einam po biškį atgal. Agurko bet trūksta. Rauginto, žalio, pochui.
Prisimeni, kai supykai ant kompo ir pradėjai plakt, netgi pradėjo dregat.
Gerai, dabar.
Kur kaip zvengiau. Ką valgo?
Įkelsiu video neužilgo. What the fuck? Už ką?
Virsilos guminukus valgo. Ką valgiai?
Aš ką tik įspėjimą gavau.
Pasakyk, kaip įkelsi. Kas buvo?
Įspėjimą gavau.
Vėja šakas, dėvicas.
Nespaminkit, šūdu.
Vizę. Mes nematom.
Žinau, kad nematot, aš įkelsiu videos.
Ką valgiai? Kiek užspėlį?
Ne.
Ką valgiai? Virsilos 12 mekai pareportink. Pareportino. Užplika galva įspėjimas. Ką valgiai? Ką valgiai? Ką valgiai?
Nespaminkit, nes aš tai atimsiu privilegijas.
Ką valgiai?
Gerai.
Dėl guminukų jo. Ką valgiai?
Dainius, gausi ne...
Mutink tą gaidį.
Jo, tai mutinu.
Leisk multų retoj.
Jeigu jūs šūdus rašysit, HTTS įjungiu tik tai tiem, kurie...
Apsiraminu. Tekst. Man palik.
Maika.
Atsiusk man į tamsus arba atvesk.
Palaukit, dabar muziks pasiklausysiu, pakaifuosiu, pavalgysiu. Nes aš tokios vištienos nevalgiau nuo Vokietijos laikų. Vokietijai, kai pirmas iki vokiečius atvažiavau, valgiau tik tai tokį skanėstą.
Vos ne 40 kavus.
Įkėliau video. Nežinau, kada patvirtins tiktokas. Jamaika. Jamaica.
Balandis gyvena gerai ir jam po. Kiek konsų boksetas 200 val.
Nežinau. Va dėl to aš ir laimingas, nors mane ir bombs vadina, kaip kiti žmonės.
Augantis naujas.
Augantis? Į masinę bent.
Mes visi zyverim, kaip balandis eda.
Be to, aš nuo tiktoko pačios pirmos dienos esu. Nesu augantis, aš esu visiems žinantis, visiems žinomas, bet senai atsibodęs.
Gal man atvaryk į kitą.
Jėzau, vis nedilpsam. Mažai vietos čia. Jėzau, jeigu ir obolių nori, čia ir pilna obolių. Tik reikia rinkti.
Paleisiu valgyt.
Ai.
Korenis varo ant tavęs.
Nes triokal ir dėl tai varo. Nu, gerai,
What's up, bro?
nieko nesakysiu. Kas ant kito vaiko sako, tas ant savęs pasisako.
Mes su Vika timpsim. Balandžio virtuvė.
Palaukit, padarysiu. Aš pakentėsiu, nevalgys, bet padarysiu vieną dalyką. Aš susirasiu indelį. Blemba, aš turiu indelį. Ir tiesiog nuimsiu visą mėsą nuo...
Kunigas būtent.
Čia tiesiog nuimsiu ir visą mėsą sudėsiu į indelį. Ir to reikės ryžių įsivirti. Šiandien neįsiviriau. Net nežinau, nuo kur pradėti pjaustyti. Sultinkums, neišpasakojimas.
Aš dabar būkau pastavęs tavo vistos per sekundę neliktų.
Ai, senin.
Primink, kodėl taip darai.
Ką tokį? Ai, dėl ko indelį dedu viską? Ar ką darau?
Viršila taip stumia. Balandį uždvacokas pūti galva.
Aš dedu tiesiog... Nu, aš visos...
Kiek alaus jis geri per dieną?
Negeriu alausiu. Aš tiesiog susidėsiu indelį, kad
Noriu
galėčiau...
prozektą puslapį ir koks name.
Kad galėčiau iš karto...
Viršila sakė apie tave.
Galėčiau susimaišyti su ryžiais.
Gali parodyti tavystą.
Tuoj aš susipjaustysiu, kuročią parodysiu gabaliukais. Gal dar biškai reikėjo pakepti? Ne, nereikėjo. Dabar aš išmesinėsiu tą vištą visą.
Atšals jei nevalgysi.
Žinau.
Zdarova, bahurai, zdarova.
Vo.
Eltas sakė žavins tave kaip zonoj.
Nu, nekalbėkit nesąmonių to, ko jūs negirdėjot. Atrodo juoda, bet čia yra belekas.
Oi, ta vistelka gerai būtų apdorota McGregoro.
Tik ne McGregor. Įtariu skani. Jo.
Juodaudė višta.
Jo, čia tokia afro biški, kaip sakant. Afro.
Taus pomidorus pardavinė į šliuką.
Karli, nedaryk mano bendravardžiam gėdos, nachai.
Guminukus, bet reiktų eiti į tualetą kas 3 minutes. Kada žinai, jog varysi? Žirklės atsakymas.
Prieš tave kuruoja. Kit žmonės man normalus atrodo, blėt. Tie, kurie yra nenormalus. Ateina čia rašyti šūdų kažkokių. Žirklės.
Nu tai nagui tada šmeiši kitus.
Kodėl šmeižiu, blėt?
Valgęs esi vilką.
Ne, bet to reikės.
Kada zvejot leksi? Tu valgai, ar ką čia darai?
Doroju.
Jokio heito, bet jeigu atvarysi į Klaipėdą duosiu. Liauską. Virsila ir jos draugė šmeišį.
Ta prasme, tu žinai, kas yra šmeištas. Tai kodėl jis tiek parinasi?
Net į mano klausimą atsakymą neatsakei.
Nemačiau.
Vakar buvau Rokišky, bet tavęs nemačiau.
Gaila.
Puikiai žinau.
Šmeižimas, blėt. Pats kaltas, kad kreipia dėmesį. Gerai, aš tingiu apie jį kalbėt, man ant ir 0. Blėt, išdarau kažkiek. O dabar galiu.
Kodėl toks nuogas kiba karšta? Su tokia profilio nuotrauka įdomu, ar tikrai žinai? Tai kai žmonės apipisinėja taupo, bet kai kas ką apie tai pasako, jau yra bus užsiauginė.
Jeigu, ką aš pasakiau, yra neteisybė, jau senai būčiau teisme. Jau senai Zajavo būtų parašęs. O ką jis daro? Ieško mano adresų, blė.
Šmeišto aprašymą žodynę paskaityk. Skanaus balandį.
Dėkui. Dėkui.
Oskarų.
Ne, tai jau, va, čia va vėl. Sveikas.
Skanaus balandį.
Dėkui. Doroju aš tą vištą.
Skanaus balandį.
Kaip McGregoras tą vakarą su tuvištikinė. Panašiai. Dėl to tokia saltinė. Nafai, Karlinas išneik.
Balandis valgo balandį. Kodėl dešinėje ausį?
Aš čia pats įsivėriau. Mėginau įsiverti. Nežinau, net žinau.
Kaip tu balandį padarai tą laiką per telefoną? Skanaus balandį.
Aš ne per telefoną dirbu. Labas.
Balandis višta lesa pėsda.
Kanibalizmas.
Per kompą. Ai, blėt, per kompą.
Jo.
Dešinėje veriasi tik LGBT.
Ne, ir blogiausiai nieko nepasakė ir dar papizdavojo viršylą.
Virsa puikiai kartą sudėti iš karto reikėtų pasiruošti prie apipisinėjant žmonės. Kodėl ant langų skudurai?
Nesudurai, čia užuolaidos, bet tik taip atrodo. Nu. Perliukai. Negaliu. Čia mano kankinė.
Ką čia valgai?
Jau pavalgiau.
Labas.
Labas. Galima čia tas rožytas. Ačiū perliukai.
Į burnos ertmę įsikišai kažką dabar.
Snusa.
Užuojauta seniai dėl tų uvų.
Ne, tai aš jau esu palsėjęs nuo tų uvų. Pastarosios 2 dienos buvo labai tokios.
Daug krėlė.
Buvo labai lietos tokios. Ir su tais uvų.
Kiek mažai valgai. Kas pavalgęs neparukotas didžiausias tinginys balandėlį?
Neturiu ką rūkyti. Ne, tai aš dar pasmačiuoti užvalgiau.
Ką tokį įsikišai burmą?
Sniusą.
Tie manai apie rajono kunigą.
Prikolnas žmogus, aš žinau. Dar neteko bendrauti, nieko negaliu pasakyti apie rajono kunigą.
Kas tas snusas?
Snusas. Einam pubgo vieną mečiuką.
Sakiau, galiu atsiųsti jų. Kas tas snusas?
Tai aš vis tiek turėčiau tada važiuoti iki kito miesto, man pasiimti kainuotų 40 eurų. Brangokai biški, nebent paštų, kad paštininkė atneštų į hatą.
Nu na.
Jo, brangiai biški, man išeina brangiai.
Kur rangys esi?
Aš Rokiškį.
Geriau rūkyt.
Ne, rūkysiu, aš palaukit, kažką aš norėjau padaryti. Ai. Tai.
Oi, bet manau, paštu galima.
Galima, man atrodo. O kiek tu tenai turi?
Jos.
Nes vieno pakelio
Geriau
nelabai
abiejų
apsimoka.
nedaryk. Kas su jie vyksta? Daug man rodos.
Ne, neapsimoka siūs tada.
Jis sportuoja. Paerzint buš.
Čia tavo spręs, žinok, tavo spręs.
Sakė, kur paspausti, klausia žmonės.
Gerai.
Visi labai nori
Jūs skaitot komentarus, kas yra parašyta per telefoną?
Seniai esu palaikau geriau, bet man patinka vaivorykštės.
Tai nėra niekur čia pasaulyje.
Nemanoma, jėsi.
Ailės.
Mokė apdėstrę level. 15.
Dėkui 139. 6 valandas. 6 valandas. Tada nesibaigė. Kiek čia tų luvų?
Ne ta kepurė.
Ačiū. Dėkui 139. Ražės. Ražės. Tai ką, mėginam jaučiu pakapot kažką. O čia vėl su botais mane užmetė. Kročia vienas tapas prideda 0,04 sekundės, tai kas galit patapinti? Spaudžiu dešinį. Kojas pirštas.
Čia tavo mėgstamiausia, o nusidėk kitą.
Aš nežinau, kur mano kitas yra. Blemba, aš turiu pilną tų kepurių, bet dabar net neįsivaizduoju, kur aš esu padėjęs. Radau tik tai vieną ir tai labai nešvarė. Žmonės vis tagina, na, po mano videosais, nu kurvagi, aš ją užsiblokavęs, esu blokadai, sėdi pas manęs.
Ne ta.
Aš neturiu tam tos kitos.
Accepting mano message rec.
Kokį tavo message requestą? Neacceptins vėliau. Siūs man lajaus.
Nesiusiu. Šita ir tinka. Badu.
Susirašiau su to gėjum.
O baduske.
Kas nematėt, čia sumečinau su gėju. Tai kročia, parašiau hi. Parašė hi, how are you? Nieko nebetrašiau.
Lai mergų paieskom.
Su šitą, duodu garantą su šitą mečinu. Ne, apsipisau. Gerai, užtenka, einam pabė.
Kokie sija programėlę?
Badu.
Einam buvo. Koks?
Balandis TV. Balandis TV, mažosiam raidėm viskas.
Daug jam patinkančių.
Kiek mums čia jau beliuko?
Balandis 2.
Jo, balandis TV.
Pilko pridėsiu.
Na, aš vis tiek dabar susižiūrėsiu, ką aš čia gero turiu.
Įsijung pubą ėjom į Tinderį, į okupacijas.
Tinderį?
Gerai,
Žiūrėkit, kas pas mane Tinderį daros. Pas mane Tinderį jokių mečų, jokių žinučių, nieko. 4 mečai. 4 mečai?
Einu gulti.
Labą naktis.
Labos. Pridėjau.
Gali joininti.
Остается, сука, дозу. Primtum mane į temą, bet es nubas.
Aš irgi nubas, nežinai, pradėjau žaisti. Nesnei.
Pagirdi balandį gerą vaizdus Keraks 2060 super.
Net neįsivaizduoju, aš jau esu atsilikęs nuo kompiuterinių dalių. Seniai besidomėjau. Ką tu čia? Dar nestarting. Laukiam, kol pridės. Bet aš nei vandens jaučiu neturiu, ne? Blemba, lašelį vandens. Negerai. Kurvai pastartinu. Pokai, sumesim vieną.
Ne pro zalbutų, priimsi po šito.
Jo, dar vieną sužaisiu. Kurva, da čia pagazdins manim.
Įsidaug.
Dar vieną mečiuką, man atrodo, sumėsiu. Mes čia esam gerai, galim varyti pasibūtinti.
Atėjai. Dar kokį 10. Einam kartu.
Pridėkit balandis tavo. Iš mažosios raidės. Bet o kiek čia yra tikrų žmonių pas manęs čiate? Nes pastaruoju metu labai botina mane.
Einam kartu pavost.
Dėkui, Dipse.
Kas nebotas.
Patapinkit, kas esate.
Nebandai po bantra. Alio, seni, varom kartu palost seni.
Tai po šito. Matai dabar
Tai
žaidžiam.
kai baigėsi, ne, čia pridėsiu.
O, dėkui tau už dovanėlės. Ačiū. Sorry, kad nelabai kreipiu dėmesį į chatą. Mėginu susikaupti. Man žmogus dirba. Žaibo ratai, dėkui tau už visas dovanėlės.
Kolen
Dice,
prapu.
ačiū.
Davai įpisk 15 kilų.
15 kilų.
Prašom.
Dipsi, ačiū tau už batoną. Žinau, man reikia.
Pridėsiu, kai baigsi zaist mano nikas apvaikis.
Ok.
Opa, ziek, kas pop kapoja. Norisi, kada ant pofan 1v1.
Ne, 1v1, ne. Pakol kas 1v1 nein.
Ieskok evapo su 8x skopu.
Žinau.
Vaikis vienas taigi įdė reikia, kad pridėtum.
Nereikia įdį. Balandis tavo nikas.
Viršila perliai sakė, kad varo pas tave už bazarą.
Jeigu varna.
Koks nikas jien tavo? O tu ranką zaidi.
Jo.
Gali ir sūnume pridėti. Nesu įdė reikia.
Ne, užtenka ir neimu.
Vaikis vienas jo. Nubau dareliai iš mašinos. Koks levelis tavo?
Nedidelis. Iš kur?
Anksčiau buvo galima.
Ir dabar galima. Kur hitinau aš į galvą?
Galiu.
Aš naujas žaidėjas esu.
Žinutė. Štau rimtai.
Dėkui.
Jis jau varo pas tave.
Mhm.
Prasileidai.
Jo.
Teis.
Seni, aš tau rimtai, jis jau varo pas tave.
Koks keit?
Koks keidį? Aš net nežinau, kur keidį
Jis tik
pasižiūrėti.
pagrasino jiems seni.
Gerai, joininkit.
Priimk. Ne dabar leik darę. Dieną grasino. Normalų headspotą gavai
Jo. Na tai prisijungėt?
Koks varo dalbajove, sakė, Amerikoje gi sėdi. Pridėk mane.
Aš nežinau, aš pridėjau 2 žmonės. Nu? Alio.
Tai grįžo gal jau, Gruiznaja. 52 milijardai 99 milijonai 285 804. Pridėk mane.
Balandis.
Neranda tavęs.
Visos raidės mažusios. Balandis TV. Ne W, bet V paprasta. Mes jau full teamas.
Tai po syto pridėk mane tada.
Kas nori kartu žaisti? Kas norit kartu žaisti, tiesiog pridėkit mane. Nėra taip sunku, nei kas balandį.
Viršina pastatys balandį ant kojų programos. Pridėjau teis. Kodėl be evento?
Paprastai.
Tada žvaigždutė.
Paprastai pakapati. Okay.
Žmonės jo jūzė balandis tai.
Jo, balandis tavo. Visur esu pasiėmęs balandis tavo. Pasiekit mano kick.
Virsila nedaro kojų gėkst.
Pasiekit mano kick. Kick balandis. Aš ten gal kažkada darysiu, gal kokius įdomesnius streamus. Kokį gambling streamą gal susuksiu ten.
Opa, lėktuvo kapitonas esi. Užtat balandis darys ir nupus viršilą su kojim.
Bet kur? Kad jūs net sugalvojate tą pilį nachui važiuoti? Nachui.
Saudmenė. Super, blėt.
Kodėl jūs važiavot nachui? Reikėjo, blėt, palikti.
Trecijas.
Numečiau pavadinimą į chatą.
Jau miriai. O balandžio nekerina pizdukai. Minatei.
Temba. Nežinau, aš įmečiau. Aš į chatą parašau, bet nieko
Koks
neišmetu.
lietkis tavo?
Balandis tavo.
Neateina.
Blemba. O dabar. Jeigu dabar neišmetė Bibi, žinau, ir ant pačio gal parašysi remix lot. Dar tu japoniškai pariekau.
Koks kūrėjas ar pavadinimas tiesiog?
Lot. L-O-T. Didžiosiam raidėm. Didžiosiam raidėm L-O-T. YouTube'as kanalas. Ir vidosas yra panikę prie jūros. Pilkas ponas. Tiesiog parašyk remix lot.
Kiek kaimėtis?
Konnichiwa.
Liūną reik sukurt, kur visi lietuviai būtumėm. Ant kiek teps zaidi?
Ant 90. Bet jum netrodys, kad 90 žaidžiu. Jum rodo, kad žaidžiu ant 45.
to shop inside every Jerome with specially selected items for buyers on a budget. We bring a whole lot
Sija su du figė.
Check out
Jo.
the dining set. They've got it
Du.
priced at just $5.99.
I went all the way from overstocked to underpriced.
We all have the same style and charm.
Just without the high price tag.
A person could come here and furnish an entire room for under $1,000. Wow. Shop the outlet only at Jerome.
Prapiso. Jauname balandistvė. Darysi guminko vonę. Guminuko žvaigždutė.
Ne, nedarys.
Polit 52 milijardai 194 milijonai 421 tūkstantis 815. Virsilos guminuko vonę. Seni projekta. Virsilos guminuko vonę.
Ką tu žiūrėta?